I predict a new path-breaking president, our first woman president, and America's first president of mixed African and Asian descent.
Right now, the model currently predicts Vice President Harris having a 55% chance of winning the presidency.
Wait for this. Hold on to your chair. Trump will win the popular vote, and Harris will win the Electoral College.
Ralston is predicting a narrow victory for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump.
Blue wall governors, Pennsylvania's Josh Shapiro, Michigan's Gretchen Whitmer, and Wisconsin's Tony Evers.
I think Kamala Harris wins. Blue wall bus tour going through Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. I feel really, really confident.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a blue wall here.
I think it's going to be a blowout, actually. I don't think it's going to be a close race.
Polls will be tight, and then he'll lose.
Oh, J.D. Vance, you just effed up.
I would say take Harris over 270 electoral votes.
This month, you wrote Trump is toast. Do you stand behind that today?
Oh, even more so.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
We interrupt this program. This is a national emergency. Important instructions will follow. The National Primary EAS System has issued a National Emergency Action Notification for the entire United States. This station has interrupted its regular program at the request of the reconstituted U.S. government to participate in the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test. Donald Trump is now your president. I repeat, Donald Trump is now your president. All deep state traitors are to report immediately to Guantanamo Bay Detention Camp for court-martial via televised military tribunal. All your assets and accounts are subject to forfeiture, per Executive Order 13818, signed December 20th, 2017. Anyone found to have materially harmed the United States of America or engaged in serious human rights abuse and corruption is subject to this order. This includes abuses pursuant to the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the National Emergencies Act, the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act, Section 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952, and Section 301 of Title III, United States Code. Your accounts are frozen. There is nowhere to run. We will find you. This is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test. Donald Trump is now your president. God bless the reconstituted United States of America.
The Fox News Decision Desk can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th President of the United States.
NBC News projecting that Wisconsin was won by Donald Trump, and therefore, as you see on your screen, we are now projecting that the next president of the United States is Donald Trump.
It is now official. CNN projects that Donald Trump has been elected president, defeating Vice President Kamala Harris.
We are projecting at this hour the 47th president of the United States, Donald Trump, will be elected to return to the White House.
This is an incredible moment in American history for Donald Trump.
NBC News, ABC News, and CNN have all called Pennsylvania for Donald Trump. This election is over.
So many of us wish this hadn't happened.
I know it's painful to talk about.
I mean, I've spent most of the morning crying.
I have to move. I'm pretty sure.
I no longer have faith in who we think we are. I'm horrified by the fact that my fellow Americans chose a felon, a rapist, and an insurrectionist.
I wake up and I just see Orange is back.
Kick to the body by John.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers.
The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back to another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. We've got a special guest for you in the front half of the show, and in the second half of the show, we are going to be getting into the culmination of Clinton corruption, years, decades of investigation into the crimes of the Clinton family. The Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative, Uranium One, you name it, you already know it. It is finally bearing fruit. And I would be remiss if I did not also say, Happy Veterans Day. Thank you so much to all Americans who have served to keep this country safe, secure, so that you can show up here every day and hang out with us and speak your mind. If you haven't yet, please do me a favor. Help us out by hitting that like button, hitting the red pill, hitting the thumbs up, no matter what platform you're on. It really does help. Also, make sure you say hello in the chat. And we do have people over there on YouTube. Thank you very much for chilling with us today, guys. But yes, the Clinton Foundation whistleblowers and their report released back in 2019. I remember that show like it was yesterday, because I thought to myself at that time, this has got to blow over. Something big, something's going to happen. And now, finally, 2025 it is. All right, so do me a favor, everyone, sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're about to get into it right about now. Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. All right, I would like to begin today by talking about an important new move that has just taken place in the American healthcare system. As you know, yesterday we were talking about the tremendous amount of fraud that has been discovered inside the Medicaid system, the Medicare system. Obviously, there's a huge fight going on right now with the Affordable Care Act. It's just been announced that Republicans have a brand new healthcare bill, and they've already got a plan on how they're going to be distributing the $150+ billion in subsidies directly to the American people so that we can decide how we want to get health care. Hopefully, it's also going to be putting caps on what the insurance companies can offer to us as well, so that they're just not trying to get all of that money from us. Also coming directly from the FDA and Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Dr. Marty McCarty have just made a decision that I think is really going to change things for a lot of people. You know, hormone replacement therapy for men has been an important tool that has been widely accepted and used for many, many years. And now they are essentially allowing the same thing to happen for women. I guess for women, if you were to be offered hormone replacement therapy for menopause and that sort of thing, then it came with these black box warnings, and it basically said that you would be in danger of developing all of these different things that really are not good for your health. But it turns out that that's actually not true. For some reason, they were trying to scare women into believing that they were going to get incredibly sick. Now, there's also a brand new book that's just being released, and it tells us a little bit, well, not even a little bit, but quite a bit about why RFK Jr. was unable to join the Trump administration in the very first term. This is all coming from a brand new book, which essentially exposes the fact that Bill Gates is the one and only reason why RFK was unable to join the administration. Now, you probably remember back in 2017, RFK Jr. went to Trump Tower, and he actually met directly with President Trump. When he left, he said, we're actually going to be working on a vaccine safety committee, and we're going to be making sure that what we're handing out to people through their doctors and to children is actually going to be good for them. It's not going to be making them sicker. And he left, and nothing happened, because in the meantime, Bill Gates came and also met with President Trump, and he put, I guess, a tremendous amount of pressure on President Trump and told him that if he was to bring RFK Jr. into the administration, then it would be a tragic mistake. And essentially, I guess, maybe scared President Trump or used some other type of leverage to make him believe that this was the case. And now here we are just 10, 11 months into President Trump's second term, and I think it's pretty obvious that the correct move at that time would have been to bring RFK Jr. in. But all things in their due time, all things in good course as it would be. So with that, I would like to welcome our guest for today. That's going to be my friend, Kim Bright. Kim, how are you today?
I'm doing quite well. And again, a shout out to all the veterans. Thank you for your service.
Absolutely. So glad to have you here. Now, Kim, as you probably remember, you guys, if you were here last month, she's been making America healthy again for the last 5 decades, and I thought that she would be the perfect person to invite to have this conversation with us today. And now, Kim, I talked about a couple of the changes that have recently taken place inside the American healthcare system, and I know one of the things that you're passionate about is vaccine safety as well, truth in reporting on those things, and another change that RFK has made has been in now mandating that instead of just walking into either a doctor's office or a pharmacy and just demanding that somebody give them a booster or a shot, you now have to have some type of consultation with a healthcare provider so that they can accurately go over what the real life risks are instead of just believing what everybody told them to do.
Exactly. I mean, this is a radical change by the CDC. In previous years, they were forcing or wanted everybody to get the COVID vaccine. And now, at least we're saying, consult a healthcare professional before you jump into this. Can you imagine the difference if Trump had ignored Gates and brought RFK Jr. in? It would have been a whole different ballgame back in 2017, 2018, 2019. I mean, who knows what would have happened? But old Gates, he was protecting his interest, with the vaccinations.
Yes.
And he just got kicked out of Kenya. They're no longer offering him immunity with his foundation over there. So, yeah, I think President Trump knows who's who in the zoo now with him.
I think you're absolutely right. And, like I said in the intro, I mean, all things in good time in their due course. I mean, I like to say that this is God's timeline. It's not my timeline. There's all kinds of things I wish that would have happened differently. But on the other side of the coin, I also wonder if things had gone differently, would we be getting the results that we are seeing right now? I mean, would Bill Gates still be protected in a nation like Kenya? Would he still have the cover that he's been able to maintain all of these years? I mean, even though it is tragic, we've gone through some really difficult times over the last couple of years. I think that it's safe to say that what we're seeing take place right now and the things that are being exposed are just phenomenal. And I know many people never believed that it would even be possible.
Well, I think the evil is so deep and wide that most people could not confront it. So it's had to unfold like this. I do believe God's got his own timeline for sure. He's in charge. We are not. And I think this is how it had to roll out because most people, it was just too big of a confrontation for themselves to understand the evil. And even today, I don't know if everybody really understands the depth of the evil that is here on earth, manifesting itself in all kinds of ways that we're all up against. And, the swamp in DC is just rife with, all of that.
It's very true. Very true. Now, I'm glad that you brought up Kenya because one of the reasons that Bill Gates was stripped of immunity and essentially told you cannot and should not come back to Kenya is because of the results that they got from all of the testing that they were doing over there. Reduced life expectancy, reduced fertility. Across the board, it seemed that the results were negative. And Kenya is not existing in a microcosm. I mean, we are also seeing similar things happening here in the United States of America. Reduced fertility, reduced life expectancy. And it's ironically one of the reasons that they told us for so many years that we needed to bring in as many immigrants as possible, almost like it was a plan.
Well, what do you know? I think it was, and I think it is. And, look at all the reproductive problems that we're having with Americans. We're not going to be the dominant people in this country anymore, because we're down to having 1.2, 1.3 children per family now. In order just to stay even, you've got to have like 2.3, 2.4 per family.
Right.
But you've got Muslims that are having 6 and 7 children. You have Latinos that are having many more children, and yet our life expectancy is also going down, and has been in the U.S. since 2017. And a lot of people think, Zach, that it's because of the COVID shot. That had its role. It had a big role. But, all prescription drugs, all big pharma is contributing to the shortening of our lifespan. And, there's studies out there that's showing that they are the third leading cause for death for us, behind heart disease, number 1, and cancer, number 2. So this is very, eye-opening for a lot of people. People were so used to getting antibiotics as a child and using it throughout life. And antibiotics are very dangerous. They're life-saving in certain instances, but they've been overused. And they did a study down in Australia that showed that it was the first study of its kind, and it went from early life to old age. And they proved that the diversity is severely disrupted in our microbiome, in our gut, when you take antibiotics in early life. And then what happens is, as you age, you are now at a higher risk, and it's caused insulin resistance in later life, metabolic dysfunction, significantly higher levels of inflammation. Those all reduce lifespan significantly. And then the other thing is, with the antibiotics, there's a highly contagious bacterium that is in the gut after the use of antibiotics, if you don't replace it with good guys. And they have up to over 15,000 deaths per year from this highly contagious bacterium. And the antibiotics actually reprogram the microbiota that's in our microbiome to where it really enables the bad pathogens to flourish, and it gets rid of the good bacteria in our gut. And another drug that's very popular with people are heartburn drugs. Like, so many people are eating the overprocessed foods, and so they all have heartburn, they have acid reflux, and they run to the store and they get over-the-counter drugs for acid reflux. And a lot of people are commonly prescribed drugs that they've shown that these people that stay on these prescription drugs for acid reflux, their risk of early death is increased from any cause because they've been on those drugs. Those drugs cause kidney disease, dementia, cardiovascular disease, pneumonia, fractures. And so this really shows how every area of health is tied back to our gut health and our gut balance in our microbiome.
So is there like a synergistic effect between the acid reflux drugs and antibiotics, or is there something unique that the acid reflux drugs do in our gut that, accentuate the problem that may already exist?
When you take antibiotics, anti means against, biotic is life.
Okay.
So you are taking something that is destroying all life. Okay, whether good or bad, in your gut, you're destroying the bad bacteria, the yeast, the molds, the fungus, all these kind of things are being destroyed, but you're destroying the good bacteria too. So when you don't replace the good guys, you are now completely imbalanced in your gut. And the bad guys come back just 3 times as heavy, 4 times as heavy as they were before, and they take over the gut. Now, when you have an imbalanced gut, the gut is so important to overall health, Zach, because when it is not in balance, you have these communication lines from the gut to the lungs, to the liver, to the brain, to the heart, to the bladder, to the muscles, to your skin, to the brain. The vagus nerve runs up from the gut to the brain. So people that are having dementia, they're having Alzheimer's, all connected back to the gut, the health of the gut, the balance of the microbiome. And when you're talking about skin health, people that have psoriasis, other skin conditions, thinning skin as they age, all tied back to the health of the gut. If you are prolifically, producing an environment in your gut where you have parasites that thrive in that kind of imbalance, you have yeasts and molds like Candida that overtake your organs and they can't function properly. You're getting dirty, thick blood that's containing these yeasts and molds and parasites. These are going everywhere in your body. Your lungs, your gut is sending them to the brain. The blood is taking them to the reproductive area. You're having problems there. Our gut is connected to every single organ in our body. And your disease starts there when the gut is imbalanced and has the bad guys in overabundance. And our health starts there when we take care of our gut health. And then it passes it on to all different areas of our body.
You know, this is the gut-brain connection is something that I've been personally familiar with for a long time. And I think RFK is the first time that I've ever heard like a public health official actually mention this in a public way. So I was pretty excited to hear that. But I've always heard about it in terms of like mental health, that maybe they thought that, you know, if there was something imbalanced in your gut that it might help speed along, I don't know, bipolar or something like that. I'm just pulling that out of the air. But I'm showing the slide on screen right now. I had no idea that this was directly connected to maybe not virtually, literally every single system in your body. It is fascinating to me that this is the case, because when you mentioned that about antibiotics, I mean, there has been some speculation in recent years about the dangers of overuse of antibiotics. Mostly I've heard about it in terms of like superbugs, people going to hospital and getting cases of MRSA that they can't get rid of, and then essentially a hole just like rots through their leg, or they have a surgical wound that won't close up. You know, that's very scary. But I mean, obviously also so is the idea of this overabundance of negative bacteria and nasty things living inside of you that you have no concept even exists, except for the fact that you're sick all the time.
Well, think about it. Think about a sewer. Think about, you've got this sludge. Mm-hmm. This poison, toxic sludge that comes out of us that carries the bad things out, right? Now, if that's sitting in you and that is the predominant thing in your gut, and it's so imbalanced and it's giving you the thick blood, it's giving you that when your gut is communicating to your brain, and serotonin, a neurotransmitters are made in the gut. So if your gut is out of balance, your serotonin is going to be totally out of balance. You're going to experience all kinds of things in your brain fog, like I said, Alzheimer's, dementia. You're going to have so many things going on in your brain, depression. People that have a sick gut have a sick brain. Mm-hmm. People that have a sick gut have sick skin. They have a sick heart. They have high cholesterol. They have diabetes. But you know what? There's so many prescription medications that are designed to address these things. And that's what people go on. Yeah. Take this pill for the early onset dementia. Take the pill for Alzheimer's, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, instead of understanding and realizing that you can change the whole thing and put it back in balance by what you choose to put in your body. Right. And you can balance out that microbiome instead of putting petrochemical pharmaceuticals in there, which is going to imbalance it even worse and make you have constantly, you're going to be in need of pharmaceuticals. I mean, think about people. I studied, Zach, when I first got involved with nutrition almost 50 years ago. I studied people around the world and their diets, and I looked at people that lived to be over 100 in different areas of the world. What were they doing? How were they living? What were they drinking? What were they eating? Were they exercising? How did they live? Centenarians, these are people that if you study them, you see that they are noted to be less susceptible to many infectious diseases, chronic inflammation, and age-related illnesses. It all goes back, it ties in, it's distinctly attributed to their gut microbiota and how balanced that is. So the number one thing that you can do to protect yourself is increase your microbiome diversity. by eating kimchi. And I said diversity. That means you want something that has all of these beneficial bacteria in it. And kimchi's been around for thousands of years. And it is unique because it has over 900 unique probiotics in it and strains that no other fermented foods have. And that's key. People that live to be older, they have a lot of fermented foods in their diet. But kimchi is the king because no other fermented food comes close to having all of these incredible strains of probiotics. And, another great thing has come out recently about kimchi is its heart health benefits.
Okay.
And it's been shown to reduce blood glucose, triglycerides, and blood pressure because heart disease is the #1 killer. And the big contributing factor to heart disease is obesity.
Obesity. And now, the people that you were able to identify that had a longer lifespan, I mean, were they naturally eating kimchi as part of their diet? I mean, is this like areas of the world where this was being ingested by people already, or was it just probiotics in general?
No, it's like in Korea.
Yeah.
Koreans have a lifespan 6 years longer than Americans do.
Okay.
For instance, like I studied the Hunzas, in the Himalayas and what their diet was, and they were eating fermented foods. They were also eating apricot pits, B17. They were using apricot oil. They were drinking pure water. But and they had different fermented foods. Every culture around the world had their own different fermented food. But when I studied all the different fermented foods and the basic probiotics in them, there's nothing that can compare to kimchi because it is unique in having over 900 different probiotics.
So is it the probiotics itself that are having an effect on people's carrying of extra weight?
Yeah, there was a study that came out that showed that when you eat kimchi on an everyday basis, and in Korea, they eat it, a lot of them eat it with every single meal. But when you eat kimchi every single day, you can reduce your body fat by 31.8%. That's what this study showed.
Okay. All right. And I would imagine that it's not just weight. I mean, heart health, there's a lot of different things that go into that. I mean, cholesterol, triglycerides, all of the things that they're going to prescribe statins for, this is also going to address.
Well, and anytime that you use statins, you deplete your body of CoQ10.
Yes.
And CoQ10 has to be there for the mitochondria to work properly. That's our little energy producing cells within each cell has the mitochondria, and that's our little power plant. And when you are taking statins, you are totally depleting your CoQ10 and your body can't operate right with that. So that's another thing. But another thing about kimchi, there's so many studies out there, anti-aging studies. And there was one that they took human cells, put them in test tubes, took the kimchi extract, an extract of kimchi, put it in each of the test tubes, and no matter what the age was, it actually showed that the aging of the cells were slowed. It actually slowed the aging of the cells. So it is anti-aging. It's been proven. And again, I go back to Koreans living 5-6 years longer than the average American lives. Wouldn't you like to have an extra 5 or 6 years under your life?
Why not? Especially if you're healthy and thin.
Yes. So you can lead a good
Enjoy
life,
it.
A quality good life. Exactly. And then, as we age, I mentioned earlier about thinning of the skin, but our hair, as we're aging, and people age earlier when they don't eat the right food, when they don't take care of their gut, when the bad guys are overwhelming the gut and imbalancing it, then they start to have, young children, they start to have hair falling out. Teenagers, people in their 20s or 30s are having, handfuls of hair falling out. They're having the hair be very thin. And then there was a study that was regarding androgenic alopecia. Now, what that is that's male pattern baldness. Women get it too, but they don't get it. Like you guys lose your hair up at the temples, you lose it in the back here. Women lose it along their part and in other areas of their head. So this study was done, and over 90% of women, both women and men, over 90% of them that were involved with this study, they said they had hair thickness increased significantly, and hair count increased, which means the hair was growing back on the bald spots, or they had both. They had a combination of both. So this shows again that communication line to the skin, to the head, is from the gut, because you're taking kimchi. You're replacing those unique, the 900 unique probiotics in kimchi back into your gut, and you're giving it the diversity that it needs to be healthy. And you're getting rid of the fungus, the molds, the yeasts being in overpopulation. I mean, those guys were placed there by God. He put them there for a reason. When you're ready to go and you got to return your body back to the earth, those break it down. But you don't want them breaking your body down while you're still trying to live, right, Zach?
No, you don't. No, you don't. You know what else occurs to me, too? I mean, there's a lot of people nowadays with alopecia universalis, which is literally like every single hair on your body falling out. And I think back in history, and I don't remember super reporting of cases of people where they've lost every single hair, whether it's their eyebrows or the hair on their heads. And that also seems like it's a modern phenomenon. So, I mean, it ties in directly to what you're talking about here.
It's all back to the gut. Yeah. All back to the gut.
Do you know of any studies where people have had universalis and they addressed anything with the gut-brain connection? Or is it specifically with the areatus?
I don't know of any. I haven't read any. That doesn't mean there's not some. Right. I mean, there's volumes of studies on kimchi from Korea. It's been around so long, and there could be. I mean, the whole thing, though, is that when you understand that the gut has a direct communication line to your skin, that's your skin that's losing its hair.
Yeah.
So something's wrong in the gut, and that communication is, off. And so I would be the first, that's the first thing that I would do, is get my gut in order. I would put the kimchi in every single day as much as I could, to see if that would help that situation. Because, nothing that's in our control determines our health more than what we are going to put into our bodies on an everyday basis. And that is why we created Kimchi One.
Right. And obviously, it's a lot more convenient than eating the kimchi itself. If you've ever had kimchi, you'll probably know that it's kind of stinky. I mean, it's basically like fermented cabbage. Some people love it. I personally don't mind the taste. And I mean, I like Korean food, so I'm happy to eat kimchi with it. But for a lot of people, just taking a pill in the morning when they wake up, eating breakfast, it's obviously a lot more convenient.
Well, yes. And I mean, I got introduced to it when I was young. I got introduced to it when I was studying martial arts with the top black belt from Korea. And when I ate dinner at his house, his mother-in-law and wife had prepared fresh kimchi. And when I tasted it for the first time, I was shocked.
No, sir.
My taste buds, my smell, everything was like in shock. And I had to be polite because, these are nice people. They're my teachers and my sensei. So
just eating it
I
up.
ate it anyway, and then all of a sudden, once I got it in, I was like, my body craved it.
Yeah.
It was like I couldn't eat enough. And I was so surprised because my initial reaction was, ooh, get it away from me, right?
Right.
But then your body knows, your body has an innate knowledge of what it needs if you'll listen to it. It also has an innate knowledge of being addicted. So you have to differentiate between, like people say, oh, well, I crave sugar. Maybe I should eat sugar all the time. No. You got to differentiate because you're addicted to the sugar. And your body, all the bad guys in your gut want you to crave carbohydrates and sugar to feed them and keep the swamp going in your gut.
That's right.
But with kimchi, I wanted it so badly after that. And I would try and get people to eat it when I was counseling them and telling them, look, you've got to include this every day. And they were like, oh my God, I can't do it. I'm not going to make it. I can't stand the way it tastes. Or, So through the years, I've learned that a lot of American taste buds, no matter what the benefits are, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
They're so sensorial oriented that they're not going to do it. So that's why we created it in a capsule, because it's so important that you take this every day. Your gut is being bombarded by so many poisons every day, and you've got to protect it. So this makes it so easy to take every day. And besides, people that have heart problems or have edema or other problems where they have to watch their sodium, this virtually has no sodium. We've taken most of it out. So unlike your store-bought kimchi or your homemade kimchi, so that's another good reason to be using Kimchi One on a daily basis. So you don't have to worry about that. But so many people, I will tell you, Zach, have just called us and thanked us profusely, and they've seen changes in such a short period of time. People that, their digestion was off. They were on acid blockers. They were taking all these prescriptions to, help with their acid reflux or their digestion problems. Off them. They're using kimchi now. They feel so much better. People that thought they were regular when they were going to the, bathroom, pooping, once or twice a week, they didn't realize, no, you're supposed to go every day. And now they're regular and they feel so much better. They don't have the brain fog. They're not, it's like a backed up sewage system.
It's
when
true.
You've got all that toxicity that you're carrying around in you. They get bloated, they get constipated, they got gas coming out both ends.
Yep.
They couldn't really live life fully, and now they're living life fully. They're chronic fatigue. Think about it. If you've got all this sewage that's just sitting there and poisoning your blood reaches every cell in your body. Chronic fatigue, brain fog, that all goes away. People have energy again. Their gut's cleaned up. It's free flowing. It's clean. It's it's not a swamp. It's a beautiful, clear, lake with balance there and biodiversity. So their energy levels shoot way up. And, I'd like to read you a testimonial that we got in.
Please.
It's absolutely wonderful. Kimchi One is so life-changing. My daughter had a hard grapefruit-sized abdominal hernia with terrible pains every day for the last month, having to wear a hernia belt. On day 5 of taking 3 kimchi daily, her pain is gone. No belt is needed any longer. The gurgling has stopped. Her hernia is now soft, and it's a tennis ball size.
Wow.
And I myself have been on it for 7 days. I've already lost 4 pounds. My food cravings are gone, and I have so much more energy, and I am so thrilled for this wonderful product. That is from Rebecca.
That's great.
And I just love that story.
That's awesome. All right. And so obviously, you're a supporter of the show, and I understand you guys have a special offer for the audience this time.
Yes, if they will go to mybrightcore.com/red pill and click the link below, they can go there, or they can get 25% off, or they can call in for up to 50% off, and we're going to give them free shipping. I'm an educator. I've been educating people on their health for over almost 50 years now. And so I want you to call in. We actually have people that want to talk to you, believe it or not, in this day and age. And we want to make sure that this product's right for you and that your questions are answered. And so call 888-383-5996. And the first 100 callers, we're also going to give you, as another incentive, a free bottle of vitamin D3 plus K2. Again, that's 888-383-5996. Remember, you get up to 50% off plus free shipping. And hurry and call now. First 100 callers are going to get that vitamin D3 plus K2.
All right. Well, maybe, hopefully they'll go soon. But otherwise, if you guys are not watching live, you'll be able to get to the link in the description of the video. The number will also be there. But obviously, you want to see if you can get that free bottle of K3 and D2. Kim, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate you stopping by. And also, thank you very much for hooking up the audience.
Yeah. Thank you, Zach. You have a blessed day.
You do the same. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks.
Yep. Bye-bye. All right. Thank you so much to Kim Bright and the good folks over at Brightcore. And let's go ahead and get my screen pulled up here. And we will begin the rest of the show by jumping in on this story right here, which is that the shutdown is officially over. That's right. The shutdown has officially ended. And that is because the Senate has passed the final legislation to reopen the government. It was, again, a 60-40 vote. It's now been sent over to the House. But, of course, the House doesn't meet again until tomorrow, Wednesday. So that's when they'll be voting on it. And then the government, I would imagine, is probably going to reopen again very shortly thereafter. Now, it's the exact same votes as we had for the vote on cloture that we spoke about just yesterday. So nothing new to report there. But this means that everything will begin to operate as normally once again, unless, of course, we get to a point where there is yet another shutdown, which is very realistic. It might happen in January because that's when they have to come back together and vote for this passage of a budget once again. I need to say thank you to a couple of people over here on Rumble and Pilled. Thank you so much to Northern Pike over there on Rumble. He says, Zach on YouTube, dig, meme, swallow the truth, and pray. Semper Fi, one always faithful, and Semper Fi, all faithful to one from Northern Pike, LZ. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And then also over on Pilled, Uncensored Abe, my brother from another mother, drops some shades and says, blessings to you and yours. Blessings to you and yours as well, Abe. Love you, brother. Justina, y'all, thank you for the can. And Ohio Kimmy, thank you for the cookie. Appreciate you guys. Now, the decision is forthcoming in the Supreme Court as to whether or not SCOTUS is going to allow President Trump to continue to implement tariffs around the world. President Trump says that this is going to be catastrophic if they tell him that he is unable to do so. Not only because we're not going to be able to continue to collect tariff revenue into the future, but more importantly, because we're going to have to pay back like $2 to $3 trillion in tariff revenue and investments. And if that happens, my friends, that is going to be a big chunk of change. Now, this comes from a quote that President Trump gave on yesterday, on Monday. And this is, of course, all about the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977. I believe that the administration is fairly confident that the SCOTUS is going to rule in their favor. But, of course, we always have to plan for every possible scenario. Contingencies for contingencies. But President Trump says, I can't imagine that anybody would do this kind of devastation to our country. If SCOTUS makes a ruling against the administration and we suddenly are on the hook for $2 to $3 trillion in debt, I don't know where we're going to pull it out of. And it would likely have to come from a bunch of other programs that are attempting to be funded right now. So he said those opposed to us in the United States Supreme Court are giving low numbers so that the court will think it is easy to get out of this terrible situation and that these anarchists and thugs have put us into. Full statement that President Trump made is the payback numbers being quoted by the radical left lunatics who would love to see us lose our tariffs because of how bad it would be for our country are much higher than those being stated by our fake opposition. Opposition mainly from foreign countries that would do anything to be allowed to charge us tariffs without retribution. The actual number we would have to pay back in tariff revenue and investments would be in excess of $2 trillion, and that in itself would be a national security catastrophe. Those opposed to us in the United States Supreme Court are giving low numbers, et cetera, et cetera. So President Trump and the invocation of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act is, of course, something that I don't think we can afford to lose. But the only courts that have ruled against President Trump so far are those courts that are controlled by radical leftists. They've been stacked with these people for just such an occasion as this. SCOTUS, we have a slight edge. So I don't know when they are actually going to be looking at this case, but they've already heard the arguments. And in terms of when they're going to be returning their decision, I mean to say, that could come at any moment. If SCOTUS is on the ball, then that means that they'll likely return it quickly. However, they may take quite a bit of time to look into it and to determine exactly what they want to do. Now, let's go ahead and check in with the Clinton Foundation. I had mentioned, my friends, the Clinton Foundation whistleblowers. I thought with the announcement of this delivery of criminal activity by Kash Patel and Pam Bondi at the FBI and the DOJ, maybe we should check in with my buddies over here at the Clinton Foundation whistleblowers, and they had posted this a couple of hours ago. 4,177 days. June 5th, 2014 to November 11th, 2025. From the day I publicly commented and committed regarding what I viewed as my obligation to leaving our country a better place for future generations in my book talk at the Library of Congress. My efforts leading to today began that day. And Larry Doyle actually leaves a link to this book right here, In Bed with Wall Street. And he has a series of selected pieces from it. And he just wants people to remember, can men or women, aka servants, serve two masters? No, the answer is that they can't. Well, the next question is, can a financial regulator such as FINRA serve two masters? No, they cannot either. However, our system has been designed as such so that the people who are supposed to be watching the bad guys are quite often helping the bad guys. There is a revolving door, and that's one of the ways that the Clinton Foundation and the Clintons have been able to get away with all of this criminal activity over the years. So this morning when I woke up to see that the Clinton corruption files had been delivered by Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, including the evidence from the Clinton Foundation whistleblowers, and I would imagine maybe even Uranium One evidence that Nate Kane brought forward several years ago. Kash Patel was involved with that committee that was looking into it, as was Devin Nunes. I have to wonder what crimes could potentially be included in this cache of evidence. Well, let's go ahead and take a look. This is from the FBI and from the DOJ, where we know investigations into the Clintons and the Clinton Foundation have been ongoing for many years to varying degrees of success. But this is allegedly a new cache of documents, not simply the stuff that we've already seen. And it has been collected from across the investigative spectrum, whether it's the Clinton Foundation whistleblowers or these previous investigations. I am hoping that much like Burn Bag Room 9582, where they've come across all of this brand new evidence of crimes that were committed against America and against the Trump administration, I'm hoping that it includes stuff like that. Who knows? Maybe it was even Burn Bag Room 9582, where they found additional evidence about the crimes and the corruption of the Clinton Foundation. So we know that Bill and Hillary Clinton's foundation has collected donations and interests of foreign cash from companies, from countries that were seeking foreign influence. And that has been ongoing for quite a long time. At one point, the Clinton Foundation even wound down operations because I thought that they were anticipating perhaps having charges filed against them after Hillary Clinton lost the election in 2016. Now, the concern here is whether or not this time the second Trump administration is actually going to file charges. Considering that Kash and Pam have done the due diligence to put together this new tranche of documents, I have to believe that this is the first opening salvo in what will undoubtedly be a full-scale investigation and a review of those documents, which would allow federal prosecutors to investigate not only the claims of foreign donations and pay-to-play allegations, but this is an ongoing effort. As I said in the chat earlier, there is no statute of limitations on a conspiracy, and the Clinton Foundation and the Clinton Global Initiative's efforts go back many, many years. So let's say that there were crimes that were committed back in 2016, and here we are in 2025, and there are new crimes that are still being committed because the Clinton Foundation is still in operation. If we can find an overarching criminal conspiracy, or rather if Kash and Pam already have determined that there is an ongoing criminal conspiracy, then that means that any crimes going back even further could potentially be prosecuted. Now, Just the News has spoken with officials inside the Department of Justice, inside the Senate Judiciary Committee, which is doing an investigation themselves, and, of course, inside the DOJ. Now, these documents from the FBI and the DOJ were transmitted directly to the Senate Judiciary Committee in the last several days. And what they detail is numerous instances of foreigners and even a U.S. defense contractor that sought to curry favor with the Clintons by donating directly to their family charity. That goes back to when Hillary Clinton was serving as Secretary of State during the Obama administration. And I'm sure you'll remember Bill Clinton was president from 1993 to 2001. During that time, Bill Clinton opened up the markets here in the United States to China, effectively beginning the long, slow drain of American innovation and industrialization and moving it over to China. Bill Clinton at that time was totally called out for receiving millions of dollars in improper campaign donations directly coming from China. Now, the officials speaking with Just the News said some of this evidence has been flagged by whistleblowers. That would likely be the Clinton Foundation whistleblowers. They claimed they kept such evidence from a corruption investigation that was being conducted in 2015 in Little Rock, Arkansas, at the U.S. Attorney's Office there, before it had been shut down by the Obama administration's Justice Department. Don't forget, there was also an investigation by Huber, U.S. Attorney Huber, at one point. He flew down to the Little Rock headquarters of the Clinton Foundation with a big white Department of Justice jet, loaded up a whole bunch of documents, and then brought them back to Washington, D.C. Now, these documents that were sent over to the Senate Judiciary Committee make it clear that not only that crimes were committed at the Clinton Foundation, but that there was also a very obvious effort to obstruct legitimate inquiries into the Clinton Foundation itself. There would be real investigations that would be started, and then they would be blocked by line-level FBI agents. DOJ field prosecutors would also get in the mix and stop an investigation before it got too far along, and they would keep them following the money, said one official who is familiar with these documents. Now, officials have also said they've been gathering this evidence that is now in the hands of congressional investigators for several weeks, and they have themselves dubbed them the Clinton corruption files. So Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are hoping to make these documents public as soon as the end of this week. I guess they have to get through some issues with protecting whistleblower identities. If that's the case, then we are talking about more than simply the IRS crimes that were committed, that were identified by those Clinton Foundation whistleblowers. We also have, of course, my friend Nate Kane, who was the Uranium One whistleblower. I wonder if anything is going to be in there about that. Now, officials also said they expect new evidence to be released this week, also in the Arctic Frost investigation. That includes new contacts between the special prosecutor who was improperly appointed, Jack Smith, who pursued Donald Trump, and a number of other top officials, people like former FBI Director Christopher Wray. Christopher Wray was directly read in on the situation. We've also got new details that are coming about how this probe sought to pierce the privacy of members of Congress by gathering their phone records. Now, it's also been reported earlier this year that the FBI had 3 separate investigations into possible pay-to-play allegations against the Clinton Foundation, but every single one of them were closed after Obama Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates ordered agents to shut it down. These new documents are going to detail all of those efforts to shut down these investigations into the Clintons. It's going to show how lower-level FBI agents, lower-level prosecutors kept this information from reaching the decision-makers in any of the probes related to the Clinton Foundation. So we are looking forward to seeing this as soon as the latest public information is released. Certainly, we are going to go over it here on this program. I love going over documents of this nature. Take a pick. What is your favorite crime of the Clintons? Put it in the chat for me. I'd like to hear about it. All right. Now, speaking of public corruption, the DOJ weaponization czar Eagle Ed Martin just recently joined Maria Bartiromo, and he is also talking about the expansive nature of these corruption investigations. He says that Arctic frost is merely the beginning of disclosure, and that there is much, much more coming. And he wants everybody to remember that there is no statute of limitations on conspiracy. Let's take a listen to Ed, because Ed has also been working with none other than Mr. Rico himself, Rudy Giuliani.
What else can you tell us about what you've learned by looking under the hood here in terms of how wide this net really was in terms of the Biden weaponization of its agencies and trying to take down their political enemies?
Well, you know, Maria, I think God shined on us when Donald Trump won this election, because we've been able to find out what really happened. You mentioned the Russia hoax. We now know from Tulsi Gabbard's disclosure, she declassified that there was a memo in December of 2016. That's the start of what I would say is the conspiracy to get Trump. And they did it all throughout his term. Then they did it on January 6th and after. I would just point to, again, deranged Jack Smith can show you the path. Deranged Jack Smith had a conspiracy across the country. He targeted.
Now, don't let me hold you back, Chad. If you've got more than one Clinton crime that you want to put in the chat, you feel free. You feel free. I was just trying to make it easy. I guess maybe I made it hard on you. There are so many. It's difficult to just pinpoint one, but you can put whatever you want in the chat. Just relate it to the crimes of the Clinton family.
All these electors, and Senator Johnson mentioned Wisconsin, but then he utilized a network of local prosecutors, attorneys general. It's all coming out, Maria, and the power of this presidency, and General Bondi is the one that really set me on this course with the weaponization group, is to get uncover what's going on and hold them accountable.
I also want to point that out. That is something that Pam Bondi does not get any credit for. Everybody loves to rag on Pam Bondi. I know. I wish that she wasn't always going on Fox News and doing the Barbie tour and stuff. But Pam Bondi actually is doing work behind the scenes that she's not necessarily going to talk about. Ed Martin brings up the fact that the weaponization working group was Pam Bondi's doing. All right. So she's running the DOJ. She put Ed Martin in charge of this. There we go. President Trump wanted him for the job, and she did it. So we got to give Pam some credit.
Accountable. And I say this over and over again. We're going to prosecute these people every way we can. We're also going to name and shame them. They should be, for history, known as the people that have targeted fellow American citizens in order to get Trump. It's a scandal beyond anything we saw. Arctic frost is only the beginning of the disclosures that are still coming in this important time. And again, the pardons are protection for the people who are trying to do their job under the Constitution, doing normal things. By the way, the Democrats did it in 1960, famously. JFK had alternate electors in Hawaii. They signed up. They served the role. They're dead now. I wanted to posthumously pardon them to point to this fact that how hypocritical this is. But it doesn't matter what the law. It doesn't matter what the truth. It's get Trump and get Trump supporters, and we've got to stand up to that.
And Ed, it's now well known that the Russia collusion story really took life in that meeting in 2016 in the Oval Office with President Obama, where...
Yeah, I see, the opinions on Bondi are mixed. I personally don't have a problem with her. I mean, I have a rather pragmatic view of the way this administration is working and the things that they're doing. I personally understand that there is a lot of difficulty in being the Attorney General. She's managing a lot of irons in the fire. She's not going to be directly responsible for every single thing that you see, but people always like to attribute whatever you hear from the DOJ directly to Pam Bondi. Was there a misstep with the Epstein files? Yes, 100%. When she announced the discovery of Jack Smith's seizing of President Trump's personal and White House phones, I thought that it must have been new information. Because she said, we learned about Jack Smith seizing the White House phones back in April. And then she says, the personal phones. So I thought, okay, well, maybe this is a new announcement here. But no, it was the same announcement. So I don't know. There is a disconnect there. But at the same on the same token, Pam Bondi, I think, is really doing as best as she can. Certainly, the movement that we're seeing in this administration is light years away from anything we saw before. And my only point is that I think people are unfair to Pam Bondi. I want to give a big shout out to Micro Toolmaker. You, sir, are a scholar and a gentleman. Where we go one, we go all. Thank you, sir, as well for the subscriptions that you just passed out to the good folks over there on Rumble. Thank you so much, sir.
John Brennan, then CIA head, wrote down notes, and here's what he wrote. We have the shot of his scribbling, but we actually pulled it out to...
So here, I would like to, let's bring it back to Hillary Clinton here, okay? Because the crimes of the Clinton Foundation are one thing. Hillary Clinton's personal quid pro quo pay-to-play deals that she made while Secretary of State is another thing. The Uranium One sale, that's another thing. Hillary Clinton's role in the creation of the Steele dossier Russia scam, that's another thing. Each and every one of these things, though, have that connective tissue. They are all part of a much larger scheme. Hillary Clinton has been involved in seemingly unending conspiracies and RICO charges for virtually the entirety of her career. We can probably go back to all the way when Hillary Clinton was the first lady of Arkansas. And undoubtedly, you're going to find some dirt. I mean, obviously, Vince Foster et al.
To show the audience exactly what he wrote. And he wrote this.
Hey, Mr. Judo No, he says, what's up, RP? I'm a long-time lurker. This is my first post. Thank you for showing up in the chat, buddy. Glad to have you here.
In a meeting with Obama, there is an alleged approval by Hillary Clinton on July 26, 2016, of a proposal from one of her foreign policy advisors to vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal claiming interference by Russian security services. I mean, it was right there in black and white. John Brennan wrote it down in his notes that they are all approving Hillary Clinton's plan to cover up her email scandal and tie Trump to Russia right at the start of the 2016 campaigning season.
Well, you know, first of all, I call Devin Nunes when I want to figure out exactly what's going on. The guy's one of the best I've ever seen and knows stuff. But real quickly, what I would say is this. There's no statute of limitations on the truth. We're going to get the truth out on what went on. That's true. But also, there's no statute of limitations on certain kinds of conspiracies, depending on what the underlying crimes are. And
That one's for you, Hillary. Thank you, Lee Walden. He says, good evening, Zach and Miss Lisa and crew. I take reflection on how blessed we are to live in America and her promise, our oath, while there are forces trying to destroy God's gift. Bless you all, oath. Our oath never ends. No, sir, it doesn't. And thank you, Lee, for your service. Here we go.
No less an authority on RICO than Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor. Before that, he was America's prosecutor. I talked to him about that. What you see is a common enterprise. It's called a criminal enterprise, but a common group of people marching through time doing Get Trump from December of 2016 all the way to today, and the same group. So we have to get to it and look at it closely. But again, back to the pardons. What the country and what the media wants us to do is look past the people being victimized. And I just want to say again, Senator Ron Johnson was a huge help on this to give relief and to focus on protecting these people who deserve to pardon, these alternate electors and their affiliates. We're really proud of that, and it's a really big day. It's important. In history, it will go down as Donald Trump standing up for American citizens who were targeted by the Biden administration, by Merrick Garland, and by deranged Jack Smith.
Well, here we go. Anyways, the perp walks that y'all want to see, the indictments that y'all want to see, they are coming. There is no statute of limitations on the truth, and much of what the Clintons have been accused of would make them persona non grata on every street in America. Now, we also have a clip here from Patrick Byrne. My good buddy MJ Truth says these new corruption files regarding the Clintons sound awfully familiar. If you guys saw the interview I did with Patrick Byrne, he talked about how he was basically tasked by the FBI to pay off Hillary Clinton with an $18 million bribe. That $18 million bribe was essentially just a wash because Hillary Clinton did not win. They were planning to control her for the duration of her presidency. Now, who was running the FBI at that time? It was Jim Comey. Operation Snow Globe is what they called it. Byrne said that he was instructed to arrange this bribe, facilitate this meeting with Clinton on January 14th of 2016. He's uncertain if she actually got the bribe because he had to give it to her assistant. Then 3 days later, he was told to forget about the incident, suggesting there was some level of interference from the Obama administration, probably the Justice Department. Byrne also outlines that Hillary Clinton was meant to be installed as president, with the Obama DOJ holding that bribe as leverage to control her actions. Putin allegedly knew about it as well. And then the plan reportedly included Obama managing Clinton's presidency as a shadow president, just as he did with the Biden administration. And he suggests that John Brennan might have blackmailed Obama. I think many of us have thought for a long time that Brennan was Obama's handler for the entirety of his political career.
Position, and thus when the cop shows up and tried to sell the cocaine, it's not entrapment, but it's a good sting. And they explained all that to me, and they said, you're going to work for us setting up Hillary Clinton. And I'm not going to go into the details. There was an $18 million bribe that I was to arrange, and I arranged it, and I was to get the person I was to get the bag man into a room with her 7 weeks later on January 14th, 2016, Hillary Clinton in a hotel room, met with the bag man. I can even go into how it was done, but it won't go into it's not in her schedule. I do not know. I was not there. Didn't know if she took the bribe or not. 3 days later, I met with the agents. They told me, you need to forget this whole thing ever happened. You forget every moment this ever happened. And we mean it, Patrick. It's like serious stuff. And I said, what's going on? There was actually 4 federal people of 3 different flavors in this. And I'm going to give you the words of one of them, but the gestalt of this was confirmed by the other 3. And what was eventually explained to me was this. Patrick, you need to understand that at this point, President Obama has his people across the federal bureaucracy, but especially the Department of Justice. Hillary Clinton is going to be president for 8 years, and nothing's going to change that. But while she's president, think of there as being a Bunsen burner in the DOJ, and the information about the bribes, and there's actually 2, that you know about are going to be sitting on that Bunsen burner. The hand on the Bunsen burner is going to be one of President Obama's people. If Hillary's a good girl and she defends Obamacare, that flame stays low. If she's a bad girl and thinks for itself, it gets turned up. And that way, President Obama is going to manage Hillary Clinton for the 8 years she's president. Then she's going to step down and Michelle's going to run.
So, as I've often said, blackmail is the currency of Washington, D.C. This is why Donald Trump is uncontrollable, because the powers that be, the deep state itself, do not have blackmail on President Trump. And this, I saw Too Big for Bike says that he believes that Pam Bondi is anti-Second Amendment. So the only thing Pam Bondi did down here in Florida was, as Attorney General, work to defend the laws that were put on the books by the Florida state legislature. Pam Bondi didn't make the laws down here in Florida. Pam Bondi did her job as she was supposed to. And, you know, it's like somebody in the chat earlier said, you know, why hasn't Trump indicted anybody? That was over on YouTube. Well, that's because genius. Trump doesn't indict anybody. The DOJ indicts people. People have this misconception about, you know, the actual like form and function of government. And if you're the attorney general, the only job you have is to uphold the law as it is written. Now, I've heard people say that, you know, Pam Bondi, you know, didn't speak out against red flag laws. Okay, well, you know, I've spoken out against red flag laws. I don't know what Pam Bondi's thoughts on red flag laws are. I've also seen people say that Pam Bondi wasn't, she wasn't strong enough on issues surrounding gun violence because she. I had a guest on the show before. There was a guy, Sandy, who had lost his son in a shooting. His son was shot by somebody. That guy claimed castle doctrine, and the Florida state decided not to prosecute him because they said, well, he was defending himself. He was using the castle doctrine. He said he felt like his life was in danger. So, I mean, he used a gun. He shot somebody and killed him. You know, so, I mean, you can take it both ways. You can take it both ways. But my ultimate point here is that I believe that Donald Trump and the people that he has surrounding him are there for a reason, and that Donald Trump has vetted every single one of those people. and that if Pam Bondi was slow walking cases or was actively obstructing, that there would be no reason for Trump to get rid of her. That is one thing that Trump can do. The president has the power to hire and fire people, especially in these executive offices. He can get rid of people in his cabinet. He can replace them with somebody else. If he really believed that Pam Bondi was not doing her job, I think he would have gotten rid of her. Now, as I've said, as you did too big for Mike, if I'm wrong, I'm happy to eat crow. I don't care. I don't need to be right. This is just my assessment of the situation.
Patrick, that's the plan. This plan, I later was told, was called Operation Snow Globe. But instead of a penguin...
Okay, he says she believed you can join the military and die at age 18, but shouldn't be able to buy a rifle at age 18. So did she say that because of like a specific case, or like I would want to know like what the context of the conversation was? I mean, on its face, that's a statement that doesn't make much sense. But I also don't think that people should be able to join the military at 18 and then not buy cigarettes or liquor at 18. You know, I mean, like I think that you turn 18, if that's the cutoff when you're considered an adult, you should have all of the rights and responsibilities that come with being an adult. You know, I mean, but other than that, I mean, I don't know much else about Pam Bondi's her thoughts on those things. I'll look into it though. I'll look into it and I'll see like what the statement was.
It's Hillary Clinton and Brennan. And by the way, even though I just mentioned Obama, I have some good reason to believe he's not himself. I think John Brennan's behind all of this, frankly. And I think John Brennan.
Yeah. Okay. So Eric says Trump picks everyone for a reason. 100% believe it. Now, even if that reason is to exert pressure to get who he really wants in that position. Now, if you'll notice, we haven't had massive turnover inside the executive circle. You know, the only person that he's replaced so far was Mike Waltz. Mike Waltz, who was my congressman down here in Florida. I never thought I'd say this, but I liked Mike Waltz better than Randy Fine. But you know, Mike Waltz was replaced likely because of Signalgate. And everybody else has stuck around, and President Trump seems to be happy with everybody. I would have to believe that President Trump has chosen the people in this administration because he believes they are the people for the job. Now, we'll continue to watch. Maybe something different that happens in the future. We may get a replacement of somebody who needs to more diligently go after the people that we want to see prosecuted. Who knows? But we'll check it out. All right, you guys. So real quick, before we continue, let me just give you a brief message from our friends over here on Rumble. That's going to be 1775 Coffee. Guys, if you have not yet tried 1775 Coffee, you still have an opportunity to do so. They've got some of their starter kits available, and you're going to be getting the bold dark roast, their smooth medium roast, and their Vitality Mushroom Coffee that hits with clean energy and laser focus, but doesn't give you the crash. All of it is the highest quality coffee you can possibly get. Small batch, toxin-free, mold-free. You're also going to get a couple of free goodies. You're going to get a gold spoon clip. You're also going to get a strong frother, and you're going to get a free black 1775 tumbler. It's $170 worth of coffee and gear, and it's all yours for only $99. This is for all the people who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble and wonder if it's actually worth it. The truth is that it is. So go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab a starter kit before they're gone. Get yourself a bundle of bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. Thank you very much to Rumble and 1775. All right, now we've got to talk about the story we never had an opportunity to talk about yesterday, and that would be the investigation into the January 6th pipe bomber. Lee Walden says, Zach, please describe what Gladio is versus other operations. I know it's long-lived. Okay, so Operation Gladio specifically was an operation that was also called Stay Behind. It was set up by the CIA to keep operatives in Europe to ensure that if they were needed to be called upon, they could be for any number of reasons. Generally speaking, that was used to stop the spread of communism. It was also used to disrupt governments that perhaps the United States wanted to destabilize or wanted to remove, to take people out of the equation. Operation Gladio, the stay behind operation, was essentially a way for clandestine operatives to remain in Europe and to ensure that we would maintain control there. Now, in terms of like modern day Operation Gladio, Colonel Towner Watkins believes that everything is basically Gladio, that the lessons of Gladio were taken and were exported into all of these different areas. So, the same types of clandestine operations that were operating in like South and Central America, that were happening in Europe, that happened here in the United States of America. Now, officially, in terms of like the original definition of Gladio, Gladio is a European operation, but I have no doubt that there has been an evolution of those lessons that were learned, and whether or not what's happened in South and Central America or the United States actually fell under Gladio proper, I can't tell you that. But of course, the clandestine operations of intel agencies don't maintain a success because they end up talking about it or writing it all down. Okay. All right. So let us now talk about the former Capitol police officer who has been identified by the Blaze, Steve Baker and Joseph Hanneman, as the likely culprit in the January 6th pipe bombing fiasco. So how did they come to this realization? Well, there's a number of different data points. First of all, one of the main points of evidence that Steve Baker points to is a computer program that was used to match the gait of the January 6th pipe bomber with the gait of former Capitol police officer Shawnee Ray Kirkhoff. Now, Shawnee Ray Kirkhoff is no longer with the Capitol Police. She left after January 6th, 6 months after January 6th, to go work for the Central Intelligence Agency. Now, she did not become like an agent or an operative. She became a security guard for the Central Intelligence Agency. So she's like one of the on-campus security guards. However, this forensic analysis of the January 6th pipe bombers' gait and Shawnee Kirkhoff's gait show that there is a fairly significant overlap, about 94 to 98%, based upon the stride that they both have. Now, there is a couple of different things that go into that. And, I had actually, I guess I had heard of this type of forensic analysis. Brian reminded me that this is how they determined that Osama bin Laden was in Pakistan or whatever. That's a whole other story. We don't need to go down that road. But there is currently a congressional investigation looking into this. And the Blaze received this information from someone connected to that investigation. And the other part of this is that the neighbor of Shawnee Kirkhoff had also come under scrutiny shortly after January 6th because there was a Metro rail card that was believed to have been used by the January 6th pipe bomber. It turns out that the neighbor of Shawnee Kirkhoff, like the guy who lives right next door to her, is the one who bought the card. He said he never used it, and so the investigation never went any further. Now, the FBI agents that were looking into that man were also directly told to stop investigating it. That's definitely a little sus. But when it comes to this gait analysis, they have a software which uses an algorithm to analyze walking parameters. That includes flexion, which is the knee bend, hip extension, the speed of the gait, the length of the steps, the cadence of the walk, and a variance that may happen among all of them. So Shawnee Ray Kirkhoff, 31 years old, of Alexandria, Virginia, shows to be a 94% match to the video that we have and that the Congress has of the January 6th pipe bomber. Now, an analyst for the Blaze ran this analysis using this algorithm, and they said that there are also visual observations that can sometimes cause problems for this particular program. And he said that it's more likely that Shoni Ray Kirkhoff is more like a 98% match for the January 6th pipe bomber. So Kirkhoff has a couple of other interesting things to her as well. She had been a Capitol Police officer for about 4.5 years. And again, she went to work for the Central Intelligence Agency. I don't think that there's any coincidence in regards to that. And this was also confirmed by the spokesperson for the CIA. Now, her residence in Alexandria, Virginia, had been looked at again because her neighbor was being investigated as a potential suspect in the pipe bombing incident. Now, what's also interesting is that a news editor for The Blaze had actually gone to look at the home of Shoni Kirkhoff and this neighbor, and when he drove off, a police officer just happened to pull him over. That is strange. It sounds almost as if the homes are currently under surveillance. Now, the FBI is supposed to be the preeminent law and investigative agency in the world. And for it being 5 years later and them being unable to come to any agreement on who the pipe bomber potentially was has always caused people just a little bit of hesitation, right? Primarily, it's Kyle Seraphin who's coming forward to say that this is likely Shoni Kirkhoff because he was one of those FBI agents that was investigating the neighbor at the time. He's also the one who was told that you can't investigate this guy, even though the card led directly to it. They know that the pipe bomber used that card. So theoretically, I mean, the guy who, or the person who dropped those bombs off must have some connection to the guy living next door to Shoni Kirkhoff. They had wanted to do like a knock and talk, like just go up to the door, knock on it and see, hey, are you willing to talk to us about this? The guy is a civilian working for the Air Force, and his vehicle was also seen in Washington, D.C. I guess that Shoni Kirkhoff had been picked up by this guy, and then he drove her home because apparently she forgot her Metro rail card or something like that. There was about 2 days total where they watched this guy. They also followed that car all the way out to Falls Church, Virginia. And then, again, they were completely pulled off the case. They were told that they couldn't go there. Now, the other aspect of this card that they found, clearly it was purchased by this civilian Air Force employee, but he had never used it. So that seems to indicate that either he lost it immediately or he bought it for someone else to use. And if that would be Shoni Kirkhoff, well, that would make a lot of sense. Maybe she said, hey, I need a card and I can't buy it myself. With this forensic study and the match from the software at 94% and the human match at 96 to 98%, it's looking like a distinct possibility that they may have actually discovered who this person is. Now, what I would love to see is some video of Shoni Kirkhoff walking compared to the video of the pipe bomber walking. But we can take a look at the profiles of Shoni Kirkhoff, who is right here on the right, and then the pipe bomber on the left. And I can't help but say that many people had suspected when we were initially watching the videos that this could very likely have been a woman. Now, Shoni Kirkhoff's build is kind of masculine, but she's definitely a woman, and she doesn't have all of the assets that many women have. Of course, not all women are built in the exact same way. But when you're looking at the individual right here, the January 6th pipe bomber, they seem to have a rather flat chest. But their walk, the way that they walk, a lot of people believed that this was likely a woman. Now, another odd thing about Shoni Kirkhoff, she was also the person who was in charge of less than lethal weapons on January 6th. And she was one of the first people to start shooting those less than lethal weapons at people in the crowd. Now, those less than lethal weapons would include stun grenades, flashbangs, pepper balls, that sort of thing. But these projectiles were also only supposed to be used in like the torso. But we know that people got shot in the face, people got shot in the eye, in the head. And then, of course, these less than lethals were also expired, which means that when they expire, they no longer maintain their soft nature. They end up getting hard and they become much more lethal than less than lethal. Shawnee is also short. She's 5'7", which fits the description of what the FBI said the pipe bomber would likely be. It would also explain why perhaps people were able to get pipe bombs in and out of these areas, because, again, we have a very fuzzy timeline on when they were dropped off and when they were left there. If a police officer was involved, then, of course, they would be able to come and go and nobody would notice them at all. Of course, that would make it, again, something that you could look to when trying to determine why we have these strange occurrences happening here. So if it was a police officer, I think a lot of people would say that makes a lot of sense. But also, it would also explain why there has been no movement in this case, because I would believe that the FBI at that time figured it out pretty quickly. Maybe they were even told ahead of time exactly how this was going to go down, and they would have taken part in ensuring that the cover-up took place. Now, I'm sure you also remember the Secret Service, Kamala Harris's Secret Service. They missed the pipe bomb. They basically totally missed it. It was sitting out. It was pretty obvious, and they didn't freak out when they found it. So that leads me to believe that perhaps the Secret Service was in on the gag as well. They also all erased their phones. They pulled a Hillary Clinton email server BlackBerry hammer trick with their phones. They did not want the January 6th committee to get a hold of their phones with all of the records and evidence on it. And that also indicates that there is some type of a cover-up. All right. Now, also, Armitage, who is an Anon who has done a lot of work on the pipe bomb story, is quoted in this story, and they point to his research. If you haven't seen the interview that I did with him, it's on my channel. I recommend you go check it out. You can also go to his Twitter, and you can see everything that he's put together with this for the last several years. Now, all we're doing at this point is waiting to see what the FBI is going to do, and obviously what Congress is going to do with this information. But if Christopher Wray was involved in a cover-up of this January 6th pipe bombing incident, you can chalk that up for another indictment that he may likely be receiving in the future. So we'll be watching that one with bated breath. Dawn has broken. She's a jock walk. She does have a jock walk. You're right. All right. Thank you also to Filter Dog. Can you clarify, was Shawnee MPD or Capitol Police? She was Capitol Police. Mighty Patriot, thank you for the shades. Rise Attire, check your texts, homie. The new drop is live. I sent you the link and more. Oh, my goodness. I'm going to have to go over this with y'all real quick before we go any further. Guess what, everybody? The Red Pill 78 Rise Attire Ugly Christmas sweater is now live on the website. Let me pull it up on screen for us. This is the first time I'm seeing the website, and I have seen the designs, but take a look. You can see it's inspired by the new graphics that they made for me. All right, so right here, take a look. This is the women's premium tee, and let me scroll up. You can see there are flamingos. There are palm trees that are decked out in Christmas decorations. There's red pills. And there are bullets. And then you've got a beautiful assortment of AR-15 rifles. And there is me with a Santa Claus hat on and a microphone. And my logo is on the shirt. And it is a Christmas green color. And the design goes all the way around there. And here you go. You can get a closer look. You can actually zoom in on all of the features. This is great. Comes in extra small all the way up to 2XL. And it's not only in a t-shirt, you can also get a hoodie. You can get a crew neck sweatshirt right there. You can get the men's scoop tee. You can get the men's long sleeve tee. You can get the men's pullover hoodie. I'm about to be getting some of these here very shortly, so I'll wear one on air so you guys can see it. Looks like there's even a Christmas plush blanket. I need to get one of those for the dogs. But very, very cool. I just want to tell everybody that you really should be supporting Rise Attire, whether you buy my shirt or not, because they are awesome people. I just had a great time with them, hanging out with them this weekend at the Great American Restoration Tour. Let me go pass out this right here. And Lisa, you just tell me what it is that you want to get, and we'll have them send it over to us. There we go. I'll even throw it over there on Kick. Why not? All right, so yeah, go check them out, you guys. And there are other Red Pill 78 items that you can get there, and then there's a whole bunch of other Patriot stuff from a bunch of other podcasters that I'm sure you guys know and love. So go check it out. They are awesome. My good friends Adrian and Christina over there at Rise Attire, you guys are the best. Thank you so much. Okay, so continuing here. Right here, Christina Bobb, fresh off her brand new pardon, comes forward with a bombshell whistleblower accusation coming from Judicial Watch. And this is in a release that came out yesterday. And it also ties into the grand conspiracy of the Obama-Biden administration and, of course, Hillary Clinton. So we had an inadvertent disclosure in the discovery that Christina Bobb was receiving in her own case in Arizona. Bob uncovered that Attorney General Chris Mays for Arizona had received through her campaign $200,000 from a group with a different name that happens to share the same address, the same president, the same executive director, and the same leadership team as the Elias Eisen group. That would be Mark Elias and Norm Eisen, the architect of the color revolution and the former ethics czar for Barack Hussein Obama. Now, the money came after the election, which implies that Mays may have been paid to prosecute Trump supporters. So Norm Eisen, again, was ethics czar for Barack Obama. Mark Elias was Hillary Clinton's CFO in her failed presidential campaign. I believe we actually have a clip of Christina talking about this. No, it looks like apparently we don't. Let me see if I can find the clip here. Oh, that's it. Okay. Christina Bobb, whistleblower. Okay, so it's November 7th. That is about the pipe bomber. Maybe we don't have a clip. I could have sworn that there was a clip. Yeah, this is just the story. I'm really glad Christina got her pardon, though, because she did not deserve to get arrested. She did not deserve to get indicted. The entire sordid affair in Arizona was utterly ridiculous. Misfit 556. Have you heard about the Indian tribal lands threatening to shoot at overflying aircraft in Minnesota? A pilot made an emergency landing on tribal lands and they've seized the aircraft. So I have not heard about tribes threatening to shoot at airplanes flying over. If that were to happen, that would be a big problem for them. Unfortunately, because it is tribal land, this is honestly not the first time I've heard of something like this happening. I would say that the pilot is probably going to get his plane back, but the tribe is going to demand a hefty fee that they're going to charge him for. Let's see. 5'7" is not short for a woman at 5'1". I would love to be that short. Okay, so I didn't mean like short. I mean, Lisa is like 5'1", or maybe no, honey, how tall are you? You 5'1" to 5'4", somewhere in there? I don't know. I just looked down at you and give you a kiss. No, what I meant to say was that in comparison to a man, the pipe bomber was shorter than what we would expect to see if we're looking at a guy that's 6 feet or above. Okay, so Bob states in her whistleblower memorandum, the indictment's been remanded and the court ruled that the prosecutors substantially infringed on me and my co-defendants' constitutional rights. The prosecutors have not reconstituted the grand jury but are appealing the ruling. The court has also made a prima facie finding that the case was brought for political reasons, and the government is appealing that finding as well. The court's rulings confirm that this case was brought for motivations other than criminal justice. Here is the money issue. There appears to be organized bribery in the state of Arizona and likely extends to other states. In the course of my criminal prosecution, the state of Arizona inadvertently disclosed information to the defense, which they have since acknowledged as authentic. Upon closer inspection, Attorney General Chris Mays received $200,000, what appears to be in exchange for the Democratic Attorney General's Association to have prosecutorial influence through one of their initiatives, States United Democracy Center, in prosecuting their political opponents. To be clear, the Democratic Attorney General's Association paid Mays $200,000, and she gave United States prosecution power to prosecute Trump attorneys, allies, and electors. Prosecutors claim on the record and in emails that the States United represents their office. So who is States United? They're a liberal nonprofit organization with whom the Arizona Attorney General's office claims an attorney-client relationship in this criminal matter, which means they cannot be compelled to testify against them. States United initiated the strategy for this prosecution, and the Attorney General's office continues to use their work product, most recently to request a search warrant, which is still pending. States United claims on their website that they are an initiative of the Progressive State Leadership Committee. PSLC has the exact same address, president, executive director, and nearly identical leadership team as the Democratic Attorneys General Association, which is a committee of the Democratic Party. Additionally, the DAGA pays the salaries of the PSLC employees according to their most recent available tax form, and PSLC and DAGA are the same people sitting in the same building in Washington, D.C., getting paid from the same bank account. So that would further point to a organized criminal conspiracy designed to take out the political enemies of Donald Trump. Norm Eisen, we have talked about this man on so many different occasions. He is essentially dedicated his entire life at this point to take down President Trump. He's been involved in the first, the second, and the 700th lawfare action against President Trump. He's had a hand in every single one of them. And Mark Elias, for a long time, in not only working for Hillary Clinton, but he was the favorite attack dog of the DNC. It looks like they spun him off into another organization that was separate from the DNC, perhaps to give him some level of plausible deniability, but still continue the ultimate work of trying to destroy President Trump and the people that... You don't know how tall your wife is? No, I don't know how tall my wife is, but I mean, I don't need to know how tall she is. She's right there in front of me all the time. I know she's shorter than me. That's all that matters. So yeah, I'm like 5'10". Lisa's got to be, okay, maybe 5'4" sounds about right, because she's at least a full head shorter than I am. So anyways, honey, I don't see you answering in the chat. Maybe she's not even listening. Who knows? There's nothing wrong with Lisa's height. I love her at the height that she's at. All right. Also wanted to check in with Greg Bavino, the commander-at-large working on Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago. Earlier yesterday, Democrats at Occupy Democrats came out with a fake news story that Donald Trump is throwing in the towel. Plans leak for his top Border Patrol enforcer, Greg Bavino, and many of his agents to retreat from the Chicago area. People started freaking out. CBS News spoke to 3 officials who revealed the plans for withdrawal. Bavino and his green-clad Border Patrol fascists could vacate as soon as the end of this week. Some Customs and Border Protection officials are expected to remain behind, but this drawdown comes after mounting public outrage and a string of scandals involving Bavino. Well, the only problem is that, again, that is fake effing news. Greg Bavino retweeted Occupy Democrats and says, "Trusha, my confused friends. While Pritzker couldn't get through his short 3-minute speech in the little village without being heckled in an American Legion building, CBP and allied law enforcement agencies will continue removing illegal aliens from the streets of Chicago. So CBP and Bavino and the government is not going anywhere. Take a look at this. We also have our spokesperson for the DHS, Tricia McLaughlin, commenting on this, and she just wants everybody to know that, yes, this is, in fact, fake news. The debunking of CBS News and Occupy Democrats is happening now.
To add to your response to this reporting out of the Chicago Tribune, Bavino's not going anywhere. The agents aren't going anywhere. They're also saying that the FBI and the assistant U.S. attorneys, the on-call task force, they make it up. They are also expected to close up shop in the coming days, per the report. Your response to that?
We're not going anywhere. We are here to stay. The Chicago people demand it, and we will continue to bring safety and security to the men and women on the ground there.
All right. We appreciate you joining us. We had.
That's right. Safety and security and lots and lots of arrests. So continue your work, Commander. Glad to see it happening. All right. We also have a report coming out of Memphis, the Memphis Safe Task Force. They are currently working under coordination with the U.S. Marshal Service. They have just rescued 101 missing children and cleared more than 1,000 outstanding warrants in the past 40 days. There have also been 2,342 individuals that have been arrested across Memphis on charges ranging from homicide to narcotics trafficking, firearms violations, sex offenses. Out of the cleared warrants, 203 of those involved firearms and 264 were narcotics related. Among these 101 missing children that have been rescued, one of them was a 15-year-old boy. He'd been missing since September 12th, and he was last seen walking along the Highway 64 in Tennessee. Thanks to the task force's combined collaboration with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, this young man was found living in a van with his father in Hawaii. He was 1,000 miles away from home. The father actually has a long criminal record in Hawaii and California. That includes domestic violence, abuse, drugs, battery, burglary. He had been hiding out at a construction site where he worked. There was also a big Tren de Aragua bust in Maui that took place last week. There were dozens and dozens of Tren de Aragua gang members, transnational criminal cartel members, that were arrested. When they confronted the father, he fled the scene and he left his kid behind. He left the child behind. So the child was found safe by the Honolulu Police Department on November 6th, and he is awaiting return to Tennessee. Over 1,000 warrants cleared in 41 days is quick work. We are not slowing down, Commander Chad Hunt said. We will continue to investigate each warrant we adopt and arrest the assailants to make Memphis and Shelby County a safer place to live. Looks like we have a clip of them arresting people. Let's take a look.
First at 5:30, the Memphis Safe Task Force in town for 40 days, and so far they tell us more than 1,000 warrants have been cleared. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Shay Arthur. This also comes as the task force told us yesterday 101 missing children have been located. WREG's Harrison Klopp is live tonight with a breakdown of all this information they've shared. Hey, Harrison, what do you have?
Shay, good evening. We've learned a lot more about the Memphis Safe Task Force tonight as the numbers are really eye-popping. We've learned from the task force that over 1,000 warrants have been cleared since they arrived on September 29th. These warrants charges include homicide, narcotics, firearms, and sex offenses, among others. In their short time in Memphis, Shay, the task force has been responsible for 2,342 total arrests. We've also learned just how big the task force is, as they tell us the operation is made up of 31 different agencies. 31 on the local, state, and federal levels. The U.S. Marshal Service Operations Commander Chad Hunt spoke on the Memphis Safe Task Force, saying, quote, "We will continue to investigate each warrant we adopt and arrest the assailants to make Memphis and Shelby County a safe."
Skywalker, we do not have to be nice to the illegals. If people have come to the United States and, number one, come illegally, and then number two, come to commit crimes and exploit a system that was weak and was not being enforced, those people must be arrested and they must be removed. If I go to Mexico and I commit crimes after entering illegally, the federales are not going to be nice to me. They are not going to afford me the same rights and responsibilities that I would receive here in the United States of America. If I go to Europe and I enter France illegally and I steal something from a French citizen, the French police are going to treat me exactly how they want to treat me. I will be deported and I will be sent back to the United States of America. That is the same in all countries around the world. We can arrest them in a respectful manner, which is congruent with the amount of respect they give to the people that are arresting them. But that's it. That is all they're going to be afforded. The respect and the niceties ended after they received the opportunity to use the CBP One Home app, get a free plane ticket to their country of origin, and a $1,000 check. And if they chose not to do that and to remain embedded in cities controlled by Democrats around this country and continue to pimp out young girls, abuse women and children, drive drunk and kill American citizens, or to engage in any other number of criminal activity, then as far as I'm concerned, the niceties have come and gone.
Safer place to live. And Shay, as you mentioned at the top of the show there, the task force has found over 100 missing children in their short time in Memphis. We have reached out to them about more information on that statistic. Hopefully we will have those answers by 10 tonight. From Memphis, Harrison Claffey, News Leader, WREG, News Channel 3.
31 different...
All right. Good job, boys. Continue, continue, continue. All right. Now, we've also gotten new information coming out of the North Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles. Apparently, they have registered an unknown number of non-citizens to vote in elections. These are also people I believe should be arrested and summarily deported. I don't want them to clog up the U.S. prison system. I want them to go back to their countries of origins and they can serve out their time there in a prison that is not nearly as nice as the ones they're going to be staying in here. But let's take a listen.
Prosecutors are accusing the Department of Motor Vehicles of illegal registering to vote. He is 22. With the help of Jorge's fluent Spanish,
Buenas tardes.
we made contact with two of them who had similar things to say.
She made it clear that she did not register incorrectly. She was not fraudulent on anything. She had no idea until they reached out to her.
No idea they were registered to vote. That echoes U.S. Attorney Russ Ferguson's words in this.
So in the instance that somebody is here with some status that allows them to remain in our country legally and they're not a citizen of the United States, the people who should be arrested and indicted and sent to prison are the American citizens who are registering people who do not have the legal right to vote in an election, because of course those ballots are most likely not even going to go to the people who don't know that they're registered to vote. Those ballots are going to be used to cast a vote for someone in an election that will be less than legal.
Letter to the DMV in July, urging them to investigate how 6 non-citizens were registered to vote without the person understanding or knowing what had happened. Records we obtained of lengthy letters between the U.S. Attorney's Office and the DMV show the DMV investigated and claimed that it found no evidence of systemic issues. Ferguson disagreed and said the DMV hadn't fully answered his questions. In some of the cases, the DMV said it was a matter of a staffer checking the wrong box on the registration application. A box that same form warns filling out falsely could lead to felony prosecution. Although Ferguson did say in a statement he would not be prosecuting the individuals.
I was not an American citizen until recently.
A wrong box at Andres, who has been through the expensive and decades-long process to become a naturalized U.S. citizen, says could have far-reaching consequences.
It could be a speeding ticket that you have. Any sort of blemish you have on your record when you're going through this process is zoomed in with a magnifying glass. And it could be a speeding ticket. And they're like...
And for anybody who says that we don't want immigrants here, you can F right off with that nonsense. This young man right here paid his dues, came to the United States legally, went through the exacting process to ensure that he didn't break any laws and that he did everything correctly so that he could have the pleasure of becoming a United States citizen. And here he is helping to uncover criminal activity that is being committed by people who are not naturally born American citizens. This is what I want to see. Laws mean nothing if they are not enforced.
Nope, denied. It's that important. It's that there's that much pressure on it.
The U.S. Attorney's urge for DMV to investigate led to the North Carolina State Board of Elections, where Executive Director Sam Hayes is now pressing the DMV to share full Social Security numbers with his agency so that they can cross-check voter rolls for non-citizens registered to vote.
We don't have those here. To the extent we've collected any, we have only collected the last 4.
Would there not be privacy concerns, though, with an agency that doesn't collect Social Security numbers being given access to, these massive list of Social Security numbers?
Well, first of all, any number of state agencies collect Social Security numbers for various purposes. I'm not about the business of just giving out my PII either, but they should understand that government agencies use this data all the time for things like voter list maintenance.
The DMV declined to interview for the story, but they did send me a statement saying, and I quote, "We take our role in the voter registration process seriously and will continue to assist the State Board of Elections in meeting their mission."
Well, we need to figure out every single person. That's what the DOJ and the DHS are currently doing right now. Now we got to check in with Utah. We have another activist judge. This time, the redrawn boundaries of Utah's congressional districts have just been tossed out by this judge. Instead, she allowed the people who brought the lawsuit, which are the Democrats in Utah, to impose their own congressional map, which is now, instead of giving the Republicans the advantage, it's actually going to take away from Republicans, and it's going to give the Democrats an advantage. This is in the Utah's 3rd district. So this judge, Diana M. Gibson, has just struck down the congressional map that was crafted by the Republican-led state legislature. She labeled it an unconstitutional gerrymander, and she replaced it with a map that was drawn by the left-wing plaintiffs. The new map, which the court claims better complies with the state's anti-gerrymandering initiative, is projected to give Democrats an additional seat in one of the nation's deeply red states. At the heart of this controversy is the court's decision to affirm a lower court injunction blocking the legislature's maps. They claimed that they violated Proposition 4, which is a 2018 initiative designed to curb partisan gerrymandering. So the court, led by Judge Diana M. Gibson, has thrown out the legislature's SB 1012 map and SB 1011. They were both approved earlier this year by the state's duly elected representatives. Instead, they are adopting Map 1, which was drawn by the plaintiffs. They declared that the legislature's map was unduly favoring Republicans. Map C was drawn with partisan political data on display. This is Gibson in her decision. Map C does not abide by Proposition 4's traditional redistricting criteria to the greatest extent possible and is based on the evidence presented. The court finds that Map C was drawn with the purpose to favor Republicans, a conclusion that follows from even SB 1011's metric for partisan intent, and it unduly favors Republicans and disfavors Democrats. So in a move that is probably going to spark debate, President Trump, of course, has weighed in on this. I'm sure he's not going to be too happy about it. But in short, the map from the legislature does not comply with Utah law, the judge said. Because the lieutenant governor's November 10th, 2025 deadline for a map to be finalized is now upon us, the court bears the unwelcome obligation to ensure that a lawful map is in place, which the court discharges by adopting. Gibson's opinion dismisses the legislature's chosen base criteria as biased, while elevating the plaintiffs' computer-generated maps as the new standard for neutrality. What computer designed this map? I mean, how do we know what the computer was even prompted to do? Under the only reliable ensemble of computer-simulated maps that comply with Proposition 4's requirements offered by the parties, Map C is an extreme partisan outlier, more Republican than over 99% of expected maps that were drawn without political considerations. The court therefore finds that Map C is an extreme statistical outlier, not only when compared to Dr. Chen's simulations, which universally comply with Proposition 4's neutral criteria, but also when compared to subsets of Dr. Trenday's simulations as they approach compliance with Prop 4's neutral criteria. Given MAPC's level of pro-Republican favoritism and extreme statistical departure from maps drawn to comply with Prop 4's neutral criteria, given the state's political geography, the court credits Dr. Chen's conclusion that MAPC's partisan characteristics cannot be attributed to compliance with those criteria or the state's political geography. So under the court-imposed map, Utah's long-standing 4-0 Republican advantage could be broken for the first time in decades, despite the state voting Republican in every presidential race since 1968 and in every congressional district by double digits. The last time the state supported a Democratic presidential candidate was in the national Democratic landslide of 1964 when Lyndon B. Johnson won the state. In the 2008 presidential election, Barack Obama narrowly won Salt Lake City. That is the state's most populous county. That marks the first time a Democrat had carried that county since 1964. The new map creates a Democrat-leaning district centered around Salt Lake City, and you can see that right here. How in the hell is this not gerrymandering? That's so funny. They're like, okay, we're going to give you a single district because we're just going to hollow out the center of the state. And we're going to make that prepared for Democrats. Absolutely insane. All right. Real quickly before we continue, I have a brief message from my friends over here on Rumble and Zippix Nicotine Toothpicks. This episode is brought to you by Zippix Nicotine Toothpicks. They are infused with nicotine, and they are a satisfying, discreet, and great-tasting way to curb your cravings anytime, anywhere. They're perfect for flights, events, restaurants, basically anywhere that smoking and vaping is not allowed. Zippix satisfies both nicotine cravings and the hand-to-mouth habit with 6 long-lasting flavors in either 2 or 3 milligram strengths. They are proudly made here in the USA, and it's one of the most cost-effective options out there. If you don't like nicotine, well, then you can try the caffeine or B12 infused toothpicks for a nice little boost. Zip more, smoke less. Visit zippixtoothpicks.com, and you're also going to get 10% off your first order if you use the code CREATOR. But you must be 21 and up because, warning, nicotine is an addictive chemical. Thank you very much to Zippix. All right, so we celebrated a little early in Utah. I'm certain that there is likely to be a challenge to this decision by the judge. Last night, there was a Turning Point event at UC Berkeley in California, and wouldn't you know it, the locals turned it into a war zone. And you can see here in this video, munitions were being lit on fire by Antifa while the attendees were rushed into the venue. There was also fights that went on outside. They were always started by Antifa agitators. And it's a good thing that Harmeet Dillon is in the Department of Justice because she says, we saw all of this at Berkeley back in 2017. Berkeley was sued and they settled the case. So the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice are also going to investigate what happened here. She says, I see several issues of concern regarding campus and local security and Antifa's ability to operate with impunity inside California. So waiting to see what happens with that. All right. Now, also coming out of Arizona, Pinal County Attorney Brad Miller is also speaking out against Attorney General Chris Mays. He says, I hope Attorney General Chris Mays is personally sued and she is forced to repay the electors out of her own pocket. This is in regards to the Christina Bobb and the alternate electors case that was thrown out. Now, Brad Miller released this statement yesterday condemning the Attorney General and her attempts to persecute supporters of President Trump because they objected to the 2020 election. Now, this pardon that President Trump has given has allowed there to be a little bit more wiggle room on this. And he has also said that Mays is targeting these individuals because it's something she knows was a legitimate election challenge. Mays actually admitted this in a leaked phone call before the 2024 election. She told Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs and Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes that the 2020 and 2022 elections in Arizona are challengeable. This followed the discovery that the state failed to verify the citizenship of voters for the last 20 years. At that time, Governor Hobbs chimed in, also admitting that the missing citizenship verification validates theories about illegal voting in our elections, and that absolutely destroyed their case. So the charges in Arizona, as you know, were never about justice. It was only about power, Miller said. And he said that this case was a politically motivated prosecution designed to intimidate conservatives and rewrite the law. Miller also represented former Arizona GOP chairwoman Kelly Ward and her husband, Michael, both of whom were defendants in this case before he was elected as county attorney last November. And the 77 electors, I have no idea how much money they all spent. However, in each one of these states, they were each forced into perhaps selling their homes, dipping into their retirements, going into debt, and each and every one of them were not being prosecuted for anything they did wrong. And President Trump's pardon is a testament to that. Thank you very much to Filter Dog. I'm sorry, I already answered that question. Okay. All right. Now, President Trump has also asked the Supreme Court to throw out the E. Jean Carroll sex abuse verdict. In his appeal, he said there were no witnesses, there was no evidence, and no police report or investigation. Instead, Carroll waited more than 20 years to falsely accuse President Trump, who she politically opposes, until after he became the 45th president, when she could maximize political injury to him and profit to herself. Of course, a Manhattan jury reached a verdict that E. Jean Carroll was defamed by President Trump and forced him to pay her $5 million. And then again, that was in 2023. In 2019 is when E. Jean Carroll alleged that President Trump sexually assaulted her in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room in the 90s. But of course, she could not name the date, and she couldn't even tell what year it actually took place. Also, the dress she was allegedly wearing was not available at the time this alleged assault took place. However, even though there was no evidence, the court sided with E. Jean Carroll. President Trump has always denied that he had anything to do with this. She said she's a whack job who's not my type. And E. Jean Carroll went on CNN famously and told Anderson Cooper that she thought rape was sexy. Let's go ahead and just watch that clip, because it always reminds me of the type of woman E. Jean Carroll is.
It is not.
I think most people think of rape as being sexy.
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasies.
We're going to take a quick break. If you can stick around, we'll talk more on the other side.
You're fascinating to talk to.
Oh, God. That's so funny. Oh, God. E. Jean Carroll, I sincerely hope that President Trump has this verdict overturned, because he also was ordered to pay her $83.3 million in damages in another defamation case after they went after him the first time. Totally ridiculous, politically motivated, hoping to destroy him. Oh, E. Jean Carroll. She is such a weirdo, allegedly, in my opinion. All right. Now, the United Kingdom has recently halted intelligence sharing with America in regards to our efforts to take out narco-terrorist drug boats in the Caribbean. It is their assertion that these boat attacks are illegal, and it is, I don't think, a coincidence that this is coming out right after we start getting a bunch of evidence about MI6's involvement with, of course, the original plot to take down Donald Trump. More evidence seems to come out every single day. And Keir Starmer is, of course, a weak leader. But for decades, the UK and the US have been in a special relationship, they call it. It goes back to the end of World War II, when we saved their asses from the German menace. But our British allies have made this alarming move, and a lot of people are asking questions. We've carried out a number of strikes on drug boats in the Caribbean. And since the strikes have taken place, we've killed at least 75 narco-terrorists. The number of boats that have been destroyed by us has come to about 19 since these operations began in September. These people have been bringing boatloads of cocaine into the United States, putting millions of American lives at risk, and also fueling parties all around the country. But they're also fueling the long, slow slide into hedonism and degradation. Now, Britain is deciding unilaterally that these strikes on boats are illegal, and they're no longer going to share their intelligence with us. Of course, they are part of the Five Eyes intelligence framework, and this is, as far as I know, the first time anything like this has ever happened since we've had this ongoing relationship. I don't know how much the U.S. is relying on intelligence from the UK. Man, I don't know if this is going to spill over into intelligence on other things. But normally the intelligence gets sent to the Joint Interagency Task Force, which is stationed in Florida. That includes representatives from a number of different partner nations who are all working to reduce the illicit drug trade. But after we started launching these lethal strikes, the UK suddenly became concerned. They got weak need that this intelligence might be used by the Americans to take out these boats, and it may have. Who cares? These people are bringing drugs into our country, and they've been warned. They are in international waters. The United States, as far as we are concerned, has the sovereign right to defend itself and its people. And if we continue to allow these drugs to come into the country, either brought by Venezuelan drug lords, Tren de Aragua narco-terrorists, or the Central Intelligence Agency, it doesn't matter. It's still killing people, and it's still destroying families. So I would imagine that this is not going to last for forever, and President Trump is probably going to use some unique form of leverage to get the Brits to get back in line. All right, now we also have a new finalized investigation into the Nord Stream pipeline attack. And it looks like this is also potentially going to rattle European relations and, of course, the situation in Ukraine. It would appear that the people who were involved in the Nord Stream pipeline attack were directly working for the Ukrainian military. This is being called the greatest environmental catastrophe of the modern history, the greatest act of sabotage in modern history. It immediately increased the price of electricity and heating for the German people. And, if you wanted to harm the Russians, you really didn't, because, of course, it made it possible for the Russians to just sell more oil through other means. But there is evidence of Ukrainian involvement in the attack that has been firmly tracked down by German investigators. They've got their location. They've got them tracked. They've got facial recognition. They've got links to veteran divers who even participated in the operation. And the German police are apparently also weak-kneed about going after these people. Poland had one of these guys, and they refused to extradite one of these suspects to stand trial in Germany because they didn't want him to be called a hero. They called him a hero for destroying the Russian infrastructure, and they didn't want the Russians to get a win in this. So this is a photo of a section of the Nord Stream pipeline. You can see it is heavily thick-walled metal. It is surrounded by concrete, and it would be difficult for this to be destroyed unless there was some serious explosives that were used. And, of course, it was very, very deep underwater. So the chain of command in Ukraine, not knowing about their own Ukrainian generals being involved in this, is highly unlikely, which means that not only was Ukraine involved in an attack on Russian infrastructure, but they were involved in an attack on German infrastructure as well. So the German investigators have spent the last 3 years looking into this pipeline bombing, and they tracked down the Ukrainian Special Forces unit that was involved in the operation. One of the key figures in this case is currently residing in Italy. He's awaiting possible extradition to Germany. It's also been established that the order to bomb the pipelines was given by Valery Zaluzhny. He is currently Ukraine's ambassador to the United Kingdom. It's clear that the explosions of the pipeline in the Baltic Sea were carried out by elite Ukrainian units under the direct orders of then Commander-in-Chief Valery Zaluzhny. That is coming from the German police and their investigation. Now, there is, of course, another story out there, a theory that fingers the CIA as the perpetrators. But when you realize the long-standing relationship of the CIA with the Ukrainians, be it special forces or their intelligence community, it's likely to me that the two things are just different sides of the same coin. I don't think that this would have been possible simply with Ukrainian special forces, and I think that the Central Intelligence Agency likely had a heavy hand to play in it. All right, now, things are not going well in Ukraine. There is currently one of the last strongholds on the edge of the semi-autonomous region, Myrnograd, that has now been surrounded by Russian soldiers. And Ukrainian forces are currently in the process of surrendering to the Russians. It is, of course, winter, and they're cut off from supplies. They're basically subsisting out in the cold and the wind and the snow. Looks like they're carrying either a wounded comrade or perhaps a badly injured or deceased comrade. And they are on their way right now to essentially turn themselves over to Russians. Now, there have also been videos that have been released by the Russians which show Ukrainian soldiers talking about the fact that they knew they had to give themselves up. Not only do they not have supplies to fight with, but they're also starving. And Russians actually intercepted Ukrainian communications, and they realized that they had these guys completely surrounded and there was nowhere for them to go. So the Russians also were dropping leaflets from drones in the areas where the Ukrainian soldiers were stationed, giving them instructions on where to go, how to save their own lives so that they wouldn't come out and end up just getting shot and killed. Here is some pictures and video from Russian drones taking out Ukrainian targets. And right here is Myrnograd, which is the area that is completely surrounded, virtually completely surrounded by Russian forces. Everything in red is controlled by the Russians. You have a very thin lane of retreat right here for the Ukrainians. And I can only imagine it's just a short matter of time before that's going to be closed off as well. Let's see. G. Fontes says, NATO, the Ukraine attacked, was it not? However much assistance from members of NATO. I mean, again, it's all two sides of the same coin. I mean, NATO's there. We know they're operating with special forces and soldiers. They're just not openly acknowledged as being there. We know the CIA has a longstanding presence in Ukraine. We know that Ukraine is fighting. So, yeah, I mean, it's all the same to me. It's all part of the same deep state plot as far as I'm concerned. All right. Now, I have an update for you on the story from yesterday about the Ukrainian arrests that were affected by NABU, which is the anti-corruption sector. And I also told you yesterday about all of the energy in the country of Ukraine getting shut down. There was allegedly a Russian missile attack, which completely decimated Ukraine's ability to make energy, which of course is bad in the wintertime. But the associate of Zelensky, Timur, what's his last name? Timur Mindich, who had his home raided and then he fled Ukraine. He was not only a business partner of Volodymyr Zelensky, he was also hugely involved in the energy sector. So the energy production immediately cut off as soon as this investigation kicked off. And what you can see here is a pile of cash that was being siphoned off by Tamir and his co-conspirators. And you can even see that it is directly from the U.S. Federal Reserve. It's got the stamp, the banding, and the barcode directly from the Atlanta Federal Reserve Bank. You've got the Kansas City Federal Reserve Bank. You got another from Atlanta, and this one is a little blurry, but I think maybe it looks like Minnesota. But this is a stack of cash in Federal Reserve packing that was found at the home of Timur Minchin. So this guy and his partners were siphoning off hundreds of millions of dollars. The raid, as we said, took place on November 10th. He immediately fled the country. Zelensky had previously tried to stop this investigation by taking over Naboo, and the people of Ukraine were very upset, so he was forced to essentially hand it back its autonomy. And he gave an address last night in relation to this raid and the investigations. Energoatom is the name of the energy company that Timur Minchin was involved with. It's the largest energy provider in Ukraine. And he said that it's necessary to have the company clean and sentences must be handed down, essentially admitting that the corruption is real. There have been billions of dollars that have been siphoned off this grift. What there was a 10 to 15% kickback that was going to Minchin and a number of other individuals. Now, all of this money that was being siphoned off, as you can see, coming directly from the U.S. Federal Reserve, is likely money that was being handed over from all of the aid that was being given by the United States government and, in effect, the taxpayers of the United States. And there was another energy grid executive by the name of Volodymyr Kurditsky. He was arraigned and arrested on embezzlement charges last month. So this seems to be an ongoing investigation which has continually borne wicked fruit. Naboo said that this began about 15 months ago, and they have in their possession about 1,000 hours of audio, which details just how broad this scheme was. And it was managed not only by top executives, the supervisory board inside Zelensky's government, the state of Ukraine as a partial owner of these energy companies, but there was also an outsider who had no official authority, and he was basically acting as a shadow manager. So this 10 to 15% cut would come off the top for these contracts, and then the money would go into the pockets of people like Timur Minchin. Back in July, there was another investigation that revealed the family of a senior Ukrainian customs chief had a portfolio of luxury real estate and cars. His name is Anatoly Komar. He was the head of the Customs Service Department. They're the department that levies duties on imports and exports of oil, gas, and other forms of energy. And he was found to have a monthly salary of only $2,000. His main income from his family was coming from his wife. She worked as a tour guide and she sold courses online. However, despite the fact that he only had a designated income of $2,000 a month for salary, he was reporting around $8,000 a month. So that definitely looked a little sketchy, and that's why they started looking into him, and they found that he was also just as corrupt as many of the others in Ukraine. Now, Diana Penchenko is one of the top journalists in Ukraine, and she has been largely following and reporting on this story in Ukraine for quite some time. She posted here on X, corruption of Zelensky. Everything we've talked about is true. Zelensky and his team are corrupt, and they can't hide it anymore. Wiretaps, witnesses, bags full of cash dollars. Zelensky and his team should be in prison. Let's go ahead and play this now. She's speaking in Ukraine. She's speaking in the Ukrainian language. So I'm going to read from the...
Breaking news.
Oh, no, she's speaking in English. Okay, excellent.
Zelensky stole $100 million from American taxpayers. His close buddy and wallet Timur Minchin funneled the cash through offshore accounts straight to his own pockets. We're talking about billions of US taxpayer dollars. Check these pics from anti-corruption raids in Ukraine. If they're slash.
Check it out. We've got even more pictures of bags and safes full of cash. Not only US dollars coming from the taxpayers, but also euros and a whole bunch of different currencies from around the European Union.
Raids in Ukraine is their slush fund. Look closely, the dollar stacks are still in original fat whoppers, meaning this cash was flown into Ukraine just recently. Just to remind, USAID, which Trump shut down this spring, pumped a whole billion into Ukraine last October for energy support. Zelensky's other friend, Energy Minister Herman Galushchenko, bragged about it. Now he's accused of stealing millions too.
All right, so he is speaking in Ukrainian. He says it had a handle, like just wrapped normally. That's it. He's talking about the bags of cash.
Then I repacked it for Capella later because I took the $1 million and in the same box gave back 1.6. But carrying 1.6 all the way to the painting, what a damn pleasure.
New cynicism. These Ukrainian crooks casually chat on tape about how much of the stolen money was sent to Moscow.
$2 million's gone. It'll be in Moscow
Zelensky
tomorrow.
launders stolen U.S. millions through Moscow, while...
Isn't that interesting? Zelensky is laundering stolen U.S. money through Russia because that way Russia is separate from the global economy through all of the sanctions. They're not allowed to participate in the global financial system. They have their own separate financial system, and that allows for Zelensky to continue to launder the money. It's almost as if Zelensky has quite a big reason to continue the war as it exists.
Throwing our men into the war against Russia. Guys, these tapes aren't new. I'm sure Zelensky himself is featured on some of them. They're just being held as a trump card for now. I hope this case is Trump's personal signal to Zelensky. We need a big audit in Ukraine like I've been calling for a long time ago. Now the Ukrainian opposition in parliament suddenly calls for impeaching Zelensky's cabinet. Guys, share this video everywhere.
All right, so it is very dangerous to be a journalist in Ukraine and talking about Volodymyr Zelensky because he has a rich history of arresting his political enemies, shutting down newspapers and television stations that are not reporting about him favorably. We have another article here also coming from Euromaidan Press in Europe. The top corruption agency raids shadow managers who controlled country's only nuclear operator through this kickback scheme. Again, they have over 1,000 hours of surveillance and recordings. There have been 70 nationwide raids documented to show how these external actors without formal positions made critical decisions affecting the strategic enterprise. This is basically organized crime in Ukraine operating at the behest of the government. And interestingly, the operation was called Operation Midas. So again, if you didn't watch yesterday, Timur Mindich, he was the co-owner and president of Zelensky's former comedy studio, Kvartal 95, along with Justice Minister Herman Hulashenko, who had previously served as energy minister, and several Energotom executives. The MP, Yaroslav Zelenziak, said Mindich left Ukraine hours before NABU officers arrived, and they will be finding him hiding in Israel and Austria, he said. So they have video in addition to the audio. It shows how these contractors openly discussed the bribes. They had 10 to 15% of the contract values that were going to them. They call it Schlagbomb or boom barrier. It's slang for an obstacle designed to extract payments. The scheme was ruthlessly systematic. Prosecutors say bribes were demanded in exchange for avoiding blocked payments or loss of supplier status. In fact, management of the strategic enterprise with annual revenue of over $4.7 billion was carried out not by official employees, but by these outsiders, these criminals who had no formal authority, yet took the role of watchers. The recordings capture conversations about halting critical infrastructure protection projects, not for engineering reasons, but because of monetary disputes about how much they were getting in kickbacks. So the operation has rolled up Timur Mindich. Again, he is currently on the run. Herman Hulashenko, current justice minister, former energy minister, and he has been asked to be relieved of his duties. You also have Ihor Maranovich. He was the former advisor to Hulashenko, who sources describe as an overseer. He would meet with contractors and back office negotiations. NABU conducted searches at his residence. You also have the Zuckerman brothers, Mikhailo and Alexander. They're financiers who allegedly handled Mindich's business operations. Zeleniak reported both have fled Ukraine as well, and NABU officers intercepted one brother during an attempt to escape during the summer. Energy Minister currently, Svetlana Hranovich, also faces dismissal calls over alleged connections to the scheme as well. So this scandal is triggering immediate political fallout in the Zelensky administration. As that reporter just said, parliament members have branded it systemic corruption, demanding action and dismissal requests for a number of people. They are going to vote in a parliamentary vote to remove them. The security service, the SBU in Ukraine, is separately investigating Mindich for assistance to an aggressor state, perhaps Russia, because that's where they were laundering the money through, based on allegations about, hold on, where did that go? Based on allegations about diamond extraction and sales operations in Russia during the full-scale invasion. SBU's main investigation department confirmed on the 6th of November this year that it opened criminal proceedings under Article 111 and 112 of Ukraine's criminal code. The alleged corruption occurred while Ukraine's energy infrastructure was facing systematic Russian missile and drone attacks as a state enterprise managing nuclear power operations with annual revenues of $4.7 billion. Energoatom's procurement and staffing processes offered lucrative opportunities for corrupt actors. Corruption in the energy sector, money laundering, illegal enrichment, all of it was happening. And the diversion of funds that were meant for nuclear safety and infrastructure projects obviously creates some major vulnerabilities that could not only leave their electricity production vulnerable, but if there is a tragic accident or perhaps a attack on a nuclear reactor site, then obviously that could poison the land and the air in Ukraine. And of course, the nuclear fallout could end up casting a long nuclear shadow over other areas of Europe, just as the Chernobyl incident did many years ago. So there is one other thing about Timur Mindich. Timur Mindich is also connected to another Ukrainian that has already gone under the knife in terms of the legal process. Igor Kolomoisky, who has not only essentially lifted Zelensky out of obscurity to make him president, however, he also was caught up in legal schemes here in the United States, and he is currently in the midst of some major legal repercussions. And what did he do for Igor Kolomoisky? Kolomoisky was his business partner. Kolomoisky also has links to Israel. Mindich also has links to Israel, and they celebrated Mindich's birthday in September in Israel, and then he went back to Ukraine in October, and then he went again to Israel shortly thereafter. And again, he is a longtime friend of Zelensky. I don't know if he knew Zelensky before Kolomoisky knew Zelensky, or if they became acquainted because of Zelensky's relationship with Kolomoisky. But the whole thing is a big, twisted, and corrupt mess. So Mindich, when they find him, the Ukrainians are going to be eager to get him back into their clutches so that they can put him on trial and probably get as much of that money back as possible. But she was correct. We need an audit in Ukraine. We need to know where that money went, and if that money went to go buy Zelensky houses in Palm Beach or Miami or Martha's Vineyard, wherever, we need all of that returned, and it needs to come back to the American people. All right, now. Here is a picture that is posted by a political prisoner of Volodymyr Zelensky. He's been in prison in Ukraine for 2 years because he was a member of parliament and he was an outspoken critic of Zelensky. He's also the leader of the anti-Soros initiative in Ukraine. And he shares this picture, which includes a picture of the current Ministry of Energy, Svetlana Hrunchik, who we spoke about just a moment ago. She also appears in these recordings that were taken by NABU in this corruption investigation. She, too, received kickbacks from some of these embezzled funds, and the billions of dollars that was taken out of this system have left Ukraine basically crippled and on the verge of total insolvency. They called Timur Mindich, Zelensky's close friend, a personal wallet for the president. But Zelensky, he says, feels so secure in misappropriating U.S. funds that he placed one of the central figures in his corruption scheme right in front of the president of the United States. That would be the current energy secretary right here. Now, this picture taken in President Trump's cabinet meeting room with Zelensky and a number of others from the Ukrainian government was just from very recently. This was from the last time that Zelensky met with the president when he wore that black suit. And there she is right there. I hope that the president is paying attention. Here, once again, is another picture of that cash. Here is another picture of a duffel bag full of European euros. Here is a bathroom that is owned by Timur Mindic. You can see the entire thing is gilded in gold, and there's even gold toilets and a gold bidet. There is a gold trash can maybe behind there. Yeah, Zelensky also on dope. Yeah, absolutely. When you have that much money available to you, you're going to basically do whatever the hell you want to do. All right. Finally, we have a story coming out of Los Angeles. ICE has just nabbed another very dangerous illegal alien. This is a woman from Moldova. She is a fugitive from her own country because she was convicted of exceptionally cruel murder. She murdered someone, she tortured them, and then she threw them from a 9th floor window to finish the job. So she had been living in the United States. Her name is Victoria Sorosian, and she came here in order to escape justice in Moldova. She had apparently brutally murdered her victim, beat him with an electrical cable and a stick, and then threw him from the 9th story window. I don't know what the deal was, if this was a husband or a boyfriend or somebody who owed her money. We don't know. But the crazy thing is that for murder in Moldova, she only had a 17-year prison sentence. She was actually first captured by ICE during the first Trump administration in January of 2020. And at that time, the immigration enforcement was actively pursuing violent fugitives from foreign nations because they wanted to make sure they were not entering American communities, exactly as we're doing right now. However, after that arrest in 2020, she filed a series of legal appeals to delay her deportation. And then under the Biden regime in 2022, they just let her back out into the United States, and she immediately disappeared into the tableau of the United States illegal immigrant community. So ICE officers with this renewed mandate were able to locate and arrest her once again in Los Angeles, and now she is back in federal custody and facing deportation. Tricia McLaughlin has condemned the prior release during the Biden administration and emphasized that under President Trump and Secretary Kristi Noem, we are reestablishing a zero-tolerance policy towards these types of illegal alien criminals. You can see here, she does not look like your average killer. She just looks like a blonde European woman. But she is particularly heinous and evil. eGrab4 says, while I'm not in full agreement with you on everything, there's one thing I come to your shows for. You keep me from dooming. Thank you for sharing your perspective and straightforward honesty, Zach. Well, I'm glad to hear it. And it is totally fine that you don't agree with me on everything, because I would think it would be a very, very boring world if every single one of us had the same opinion. So I am glad that I can do that one thing to keep you from dooming. I think things are great. I think we're going in the right direction, and things are looking up in so many different areas. All right, I have one final message from our friends over here on Rumble, and then we'll read the final gold pills from over here on Pilled. Let me see here. We're going to talk about our friends over at Rumble, because Rumble is a wonderful platform. All right, you guys. If you haven't already, you've got to make sure that you download the Rumble app. It's totally free. It's very simple to use, and it's the best way to stay connected to the content that you want to watch. Once you get it, just search for my channel, and then you hit follow. And that way you're going to get a notification every time we go live. You don't ever have to worry about missing a show. There's no extra steps. Unlike other platforms, you may not get a notification when I actually go live, and it may come later. This is going to be at the moment I go live. So go grab it right now. Use the link in the description or the QR code that you see on screen. Download it to your phone, and you're ready to go. And if you like watching on the big screen, you can download the Rumble app on all major streaming devices, Apple TVs, Android TVs, Fire TVs. All you got to do is just search for Rumble, follow the channel, be part of the action. You can also download it on a tablet, like an iPad or an Android device. It's available everywhere. So thank you very much to Rumble, and thank you very much to all of you out there in the audience. Let me say thank you to Mighty Patriot for the shades. Thank you to Filter Dog. We already said that one. Filter Dog says, E. Jean's story came from a Law and Order episode. You are correct, sir. You are correct. No Thanks Joe says, hey, Zach, did Hunter happen to get a job on the board of watchers over there in Ukraine? I know he was looking for work. All I know about him working on in Ukraine is the board of Burisma. And then Good Dog 45, thank you for the can. A boneless chicken, thank you for the shades. And it looks like I must have missed these ones from earlier. Let's see. Filter Dog said, I'm glad Ed Martin lost the Inspector Gadget look for this interview. Yeah, I noticed he got a haircut too. No Thanks Joe. He says, thank you, Zach and Lisa. It's nice to have you back in the captain's chair and delivering us the most up-to-date information that is being released. Thanks. Number one, Clinton is the amazingly coincidental amount of suicidal friends, associates, and enemies. God bless. Yes, I don't know of any other situation where someone committed an act of self-deletion with a 12-gauge long barrel shotgun to the chest and then also hung themselves from an electrical cord from a tree. Ohio Kimmy, thank you for the can. All right, you guys, that is everything. We'll go ahead and round it out right there. Thank you for being here. Hit that like button. Help us out by sharing the show. And please join me tomorrow right here once again at 5 p.m. Eastern for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Until that time, good luck and God bless. We'll see you.
don't forget to hit the like button. Looks like Woke and Walked might have dropped a last-minute gold pill. Zach the Corruption Detector and Black Pill Deflector. Did you see the Tucker Carlson expose with Dane Wigington on stratospheric aerosol injection? Needs to stop. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but obviously I've had Dane on the show before, so I figured I would already be aware of everything that he said, but it is definitely on my list of things to catch. Thank you so much, Woke and Walked. And once again, thank you to all who have served to keep our nation safe and secure. Happy Veterans Day.